Well, hello there. It's Championship Sunday. It's Asia Pacific first. Oh my god, I got that as a wee bit of a messful. But it's PAE versus BOD. It is going to be the battle between the two to find out who is going to be the top dog here in our Conqueror's Blade final, joined by Brother Ruda. How are we doing this fine Sunday?
Hello, I'm doing super fine. I'm so happy to have somebody next to me for this match at least, because before it was me struggling to find the words and even a topic, but now I have somebody right next to me and I can talk to. So I'm doing super fine for Sunday. And it's a
Yeah,
final.
exactly. It's a final. It is the best day to be watching some Conqueror's Blade for sure. And that's across the board. Every single region we'll be seeing today at certain times we'll be watching, but obviously Asia Pacific is up first. And with these two teams, the previous matches have been pretty decent in the last two run ups into this. Elimination matches for PAE has been 3-0s across the board against OSS and DOC, a good performance to get to this final spot. And on the other side, BOD beating AMG 3-1 and MBY 3-0. But speaking of that, that seems like a great run for PAE. Looks like they're the top dogs, but really, when it came to that previous matches in the group stages, AMG were in the group with PAE, and that was the team to beat PAE. So the only team so far in the grand finals here that have actually taken a loss so far. BOD's went 6-6, managed to get a 100% record in that group stage, and obviously not lost anything pretty much all the way through. So with that being said, AMG was the team that actually BOD beat to get to this final stage as well. So feel like it is upper hand to BOD, brother, but anything can happen, right? It is now a different side of things. It was PE did lose when it was a best of three. There was no bans, there was no protects, etc. So that does make a difference in how the group stages would have panned out in considering to the elimination stage. So do you feel like this might be a little bit better or a better chance here for PE with the ban and pick system?
For sure, I think there's always a difference in like best of five with all the pick and bans. For like you playing on two maps, that's something different. And then also you're going for like unit saved and unit saved and picked and banned. Therefore, there's a whole difference to best of three there for sure, just on the paper. But then you also need to look into how like games and moral is doing. So facing an enemy where you know they beat the team that beats you before is something where people maybe struggle to find like their moral, be like, oh shit, they're so strong. So therefore, I hope the mentality is strong with this team right now, and PHE is showing PAE, not H, huh? Showing how strong their mental is and how far they can go right now on the final, and showing them what they are made of in the end.
Yeah,
Therefore,
exactly that. Well, I feel like you just take this as a clean slate, right? You go into the grand finals, doesn't matter the results before, doesn't matter anymore. Like this is all down to it. One game, well, one match here could decide your fate. First or second is on the cards. Either way, it's a good prize pool to be had. That's first place. You're getting £8,000 as a team reward, plus all the exclusive attires, etc., and avatars, and even sovereigns along the way for that first spot. Both be competing for that. Even a second place, so you're getting a £5,000 team reward. I mean, no matter where you go, you come away with some good prize pool. But I'm sure PAE and BOD obviously want to be crowned the champions here in the Asia Pacific region, and for sure want to try and progress further to go play against the EU sides because they will be playing against EU and NA sides potentially. Is that on the cards this time around?
now, the first thing is they're gonna play against the Chinese teams. So APEC is the top team. Two teams is gonna play against the Chinese teams. So going for the champion of the East. The same thing is happening for the champion of the West, where AMS is playing against EU. And then afterwards, the top two teams of the both sides are gonna face each other in the global civic, where both sides like fight for the global championship, and therefore also getting rewards for the whole server, as far as I'm
Oh,
known.
that's
So
not a
therefore,
bad
you're
thing.
not
Like, come on,
only,
EU, if you're from Europe.
yeah, just go with, if it's taking why so serious home, or yeah buddy, but we need to show some flash, and last year we lost this sadly, but I think this year we're looking very strong, and I hope we will give them some good beating from the
This is the
West.
I was about to say this is the thing over on the west side. It seems like a completely different game. The way they play, the way they strategize, and the way they bring different units into the fray is always interesting to see. It always seems to work out for them. They always seem to be that better side as it comes into it. But yeah, yeah, buddy's looking good, and why is the series for looking good? So I mean, one of these two teams get in there maybe potentially, but obviously they still have to face up against NA first as well. So we always say EU's better than any most of the time because they always tend to out beat them outright. But we'll see how it happens. It's still got to come in, and we'll see these two finals soon enough. That being said, though, going into this matchup, I don't really have too much knowledge of the individual players, except it will be really difficult in terms of like seeing them. Obviously, over on Asia Pacific, names and stuff will be a bit harder to read. For us anyway, as I
A
don't read
little bit.
Asian or anything, I'm afraid. Although sometimes wish I could, because it would just be interesting to be able to learn multiple different languages. And I just don't think I'm clever enough for that, brother. But you've got English and you've got German on your hand. I mean, at least you've got a couple. Have you got any other languages that you speak, brother?
Hablo un poco español, parlez-vous un petit français?
Oh,
So,
God. Now you're just showing off the bilingual initiative. That's multilingual.
yeah, my
Anyway, I
French
can't.
is
I can do Scottish and English. And that's about, that's about it.
my French
There's
is really,
nothing
really
else.
bad. Yeah,
I
Russo,
mean,
I can speak a
I
little
thought my
bit.
French was good, but it's definitely not. I figured that out when I went to France and was asking to find the Moulin Rouge, and they didn't understand where I was asking. Clearly, saying Moulin Rouge multiple times was not good enough. No, la Moulin Rouge. I was like, yes, that's it. Yeah, the same
Uh,
bloody thing I've said 4 times. It's fine. It must be that bad.
yeah, languages are difficult. Often, like facing like native speakers is a little bit challenging, and then depending on where the people are coming from, actually from the land, you can more likely understand them. Like
Yeah,
if you are starting to sound like a lot of Scottish, I think people gonna struggle to understand the English inside of it, and therefore the same for Germany. If you speak German and then in southern Germany you can't, some people don't understand people talking southern German because just based on the differences, and that's all over the countries happening. So always
yeah.
depending on who you're speaking to, and then also on the person in front of you paying attention to how good you are in a certain language, and therefore talking to you very slow like you have a mental illness.
Yeah, this is what I've tried to work out is just slowing down the pace because when I speak normally here, it's
Uh,
probably a lot faster than what I'm speaking right now. Because otherwise, people just don't understand what I'm saying for the most part. And if you go further north in Scotland as well, I'm like, what did he just say? Like, I have no idea what they're saying. I mean, and that's in the same country. So yeah, it could happen across the board. So, yeah, I would love to be able to be multilingual like yourself and get stuck into it. But everybody tends to learn English nowadays, so I think I just get a bit lazy as being a Scotsman, and we're just like, nah, you know what? What's the point? We can't even learn our own native language of Gaelic, so why would we even learn another language? That's the way we seem to be thinking across here and teaching wise. I think I got learned French by a Spanish teacher, which made it about 10 times difficult to learn because he's got a Spanish accent speaking French, and it was very confusing. So yeah, I can't imagine how difficult that would have been probably for me, really, in the grand scheme of things. But maybe that's why I'm not very good at French, and I sound completely different. But that being said, that's nothing to do with Conqueror's Blade. But these guys will definitely be able to understand exactly what's going on in their communication with each other because they've all been playing together from the get go, the start of this tournament, looking to progress to that final opportunity and get that prize pool, and potentially even go on towards that global championships where it doesn't matter what language they're speaking. They don't have to communicate with the opposition team. They just have to communicate with one another and make sure that they are listening to one another to make sure that the team plays go out exactly how they plan them. And obviously, they've done scrims, they've done them multiple weeks in and out against multiple teams across their regions. And then when they come against each other in other regions, I think the play style will be slightly different. But that being said, with its best of five as well, once again in this grand finals, let's go look at the ban and picks between them because this is where it's going to change things up from the previously, from that group stage where PE obviously did lose their first game, but White Elk for banned and Healing Fjord banned. So we're not going to get a quick map under our hands here for Healing Fjord, that's for sure. Regionopolis, though, the map pick for PAE. We've seen it going at once so far on the EU side, and it never really got picked very often since. I think we've seen a couple of maps, but not too much. It's not a major pick going out. I'm not sure in terms of the Asia Pacific if they've used this map and play this map a lot more. And then they've got Harbour City, another map that we see few and far between over on the EU side. So it just shows that the difference in map picks in the regions definitely does change up a little bit in how the picks and bans will be going as well. Brother, go speak through the little picks and bans into the scene and how this may affect the gameplay.
so we see Falco Netty Gunner's Band, Spartan Shoes, Cicalia Milice, Dagger Eggs, Heaven Range, and Yan Dao being banned, and picks being Paladins and Phalanx. Like normally, what I saw from Apex side right here is always like having Phalanx and Orochi Samurai being the most picked units, and therefore it's not no shocker for me to see Sunborn Phalanx here being picked. So we go already into the unit screen, therefore we can already look into what is being picked. Like I said before, Orochi and Sunborn Phalanx being like the most picked T5 unit. Here we can see that they also adapted a lot to the green and blue meta changes right now, because just based on how much they are costing in for your setup, and therefore they are really cheap and you can use a lot of them to bait some out. We saw like a lot of pushes and initial fights happening on the EU part yesterday, no, 2 days ago, around the Rattan Pikeman, doing really good with all the charges on the wall or climbing the wall, and therefore baiting out some units and into the trap, and even making some good trades in the end. I think like way so serious, the one Mauer where they go for the wall thingy there was so epic, and that's something I'm gonna expect from all the green units here right now being used.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've never seen it on our side where we are seeing on EU or even on NA 5 units being brought into the battle. There's a couple of players on that defending side that do have that because of the green unit picks. Even some where they're not picking a tier 5 unit, they're picking two purples and then it's green and blues across it for the remainder. That could be an interesting strategy because obviously they've sent more units at it and potentially look for that defense. Hopefully, not too much. You don't want to be leaving it till the very end where you've got the lower tier units up against high tier units, because over on EU we've seen that happen multiple times where the team ends up just getting absolutely wiped, even though the numbers look great. Across the board, it's not really good in terms of quality, and a tier 5 unit will just make sure it is light work for them as the first treb does come in to deal with that artillery as the game kicks off. BOD looking to go to that small gateway and not looking to push any of the siege towers early on. That's going to be an interesting strategy with them because nobody tends to want to defend down there at the start of it. But we'll see if PAE are going to rotate units around, if they see the players rotating towards it, whether that's their option or are they just going to focus these siege towers.
Doesn't look like a really effort for the small gate, because then they would just run with the heroes into the small gate. They just set up their units for an anti-sally, I guess, and therefore just preparing themselves for somebody coming out there. So
Yeah.
they're focusing heavily on right side with the turrets there and just providing some cover there. Now they're pushing up for small gate and just looking into placing their phalanx and anti-cuff there. I expect them to change now their approach in a couple of minutes or seconds even.
Yeah, that's the thing with
And
Harbour City. It's quite quickly to take down these siege towers. It doesn't take too much. They've obviously got Falconettis out as well as that defense they did have at some point somewhere, but I don't think they're actually used on the map at the moment. But Siege Tower 1 will fall, and the next one won't be too far behind it. The one that's on the far right hand side was the closest to the wall, but technically, with the indentation of the wall and the way it goes back, it's probably about the same distance as the first couple. And PAE will make sure that is dealt with to start with. And now they're sending the pings to that small gate because you see the damage of that small gate going down. The heroes making sure that that gate will be opened up and potentially used as a little bait for PAE to move towards them and open up that opening towards that A zone, which is obviously on the wall and is really difficult to deal with unless you deal with all the trebs in the background for a defensive side. And home seems to be the more likely defensive structure, but you don't really want to let it get that far, right? Because I feel like normally in this city where there's so many opening routes and there's so many ways around, it's very difficult to defend, I think, the home base compared to some other maps.
yeah, for sure, the map is very favored to the attacker. That's something, because if you're picking the map first, you want to pick something that is attacker favored to maybe build up some momentum with you winning. This could be like a physical or psychological trick for you as a team to just put some pressure on the defending team right from the get-go, and therefore going for an attacker friendly map. And as most of us know, this map is heavily attacker friendly, and therefore just putting some pressure on them. We right now see them being very defensive here by just building some arty for the towers right now, but I think the second set of towers it's gonna hit. And they're gonna retreat all their units back, because I
You know the
don't see them.
difference with
Yeah,
PE though, I'm noticed there they've got a cannon and not a culverin to deal with that Sage Tower. I mean, that's an interesting pick. Normally we'd just be picking culverins. They're a little bit quicker, they're a little bit easier, and I feel like they would be doing more damage than the splash damage and the damage that a cannon can do on towards that siege tower. But that being said, it looks like BOD's got a chance to get this siege tower to the wall. They've got a couple of muskets dealing with it though from PE on that wall, and they might be the one that stops it eventually before it gets too close because it's about to mount. And if they don't hit it, damage it now, that's going to be mountain for sure. And it does. It will reach PE. I don't know what the muskets were thinking, but they should clearly have dealt with that quite quicker than they have eventually done. And that means they're going to have to come off of that wall with that defense, and they're going to have to find a way in to try to pincer them in if they do come up on that siege tower.
And they look like they want to defend wall by the looks of it. They're not
Interesting.
retreating their units, they're rotating all their units to the left or the right side of the minimap. Therefore, gonna stand there and defend this for sure, because then they're also using the Chenjis as special units there and gonna have a really defensive thing on it. They now may be looking into getting pushed from the middle right tower, which I suspect them, or going all the way to the right tower. Maybe even splitting their troops there, but they're gonna fight against the trebuchet, against the pushing teams on side of the wall there, which is very uncommon. And therefore, I doubt this will work out for PHE, but I don't know. I'm not that good as they are, so I can just judge. And now they're retreating, so they are aware of the situation and just
Yeah.
wanted to have some time there, and therefore just pulling
Yeah,
back now.
exactly that. Well, now they're going to try and bait in the city, right? You want to try and bait out the use of that artillery on this top wall on A. So you kind of keep closer to that supply point side, hopefully, and use that to your advantage if you can. Try and make them use as much artillery as possible. Waste that time. They're going to get extra time, obviously, after capping A. And that's going to give BOD the opportunity now to kind of sit back, relax, use their trebs, use their artillery spam, try and deal some damage with the mortars if they can on towards PE because the only supply point they've got is this one close left. The other one is quite a trek away, but that's one of the most important ones to be holding on to. It doesn't really matter about this one because it's too far away from that home point. But the other one is pretty much right next door to it. And if you lose that, you lose the push. You lose a couple of numbers when the attacking side go through, and that's where you don't want to be losing. You don't want to be losing loads of numbers in a supply repoint, so you can go back, get your units healed up, or even get a new unit out to go on the flank and try and catch them off guard. But as it starts here, you've just got one player from BOD just trying to be a little bit of a baiter here, waiting around inside that gateway, just seeing if you can find a potential kick on any of these individuals. But there's too many members of PE inside. Surely you won't commit too much and lose a life because lives matter. And you definitely don't want to be losing one of them early on before any push has been even had. No units really had any battle at this point in time. And when it looks at it, you've got quite a good amount of numbers to use because the way they've strategized their unit setups.
Looks like they're now pulling to the left side of the mini map and therefore setting up there. I see changes on both sides. For the special unit use right now, there's some healing. No, just some healers. And this could be, I think, incendiary archers for the defenders for sure, and also for the attackers. So both sides may be looking into countering maybe Kokos, but both had maybe the same idea and therefore just using changes right now. Because Kokos are very efficient with the cost, and therefore. Oh no, I think they were banned. That's my
Yeah, they
mistake.
were. It's like Killing
They
Militia
were
were being
banned.
banned, so they won't be here at all. But that's it. BOD is making their way in through that small gate, though. Eventually, they did take it down earlier on, and now they are looking to get themselves in, get some foothold inside these city walls, and they have got a unit of shields in, along with a few other units coming along behind it. At the flanks, the archers are coming in, the Siladars are there, Senji Grenadiers all set up. BOD might be getting targeted by mortars though, and the spam from that defense will be looking in the right direction. That is good enough placement, and they've read it well if you're that defensive side of PEE because you want to make sure you're not setting up onto the wall because that's why BOD were on the wall for so long, hoping that the opposition would set up mortars facing that direction so they can use the side gate to their momentum. But they're also coming in through that big gate with another set of units for that pinch, and if that can work out for them, BOD might have a good first encounter as the P is now going to try and take the push towards that small gate. They'll start rotating out of the small gate. The big gate comes in with a charge, and that's going to be met by another unit of cavalry. Who wins the cavalry battle? It is BOD winning all that fight, and they're going to have to send units over towards that supply point. So PAE is going to have to drop back and the guys from the small gate have managed to escape with most of their lives and most of their units still alive and intact. As they do start making their way in here with Imperial shields as well. Tenji Grenadiers have been dealt with in the back by the glaive, and all of a sudden it is going to be a sea of red trying to make their way in. PE looking for that defense, but home point is already being captured from BOD. They've made players rotate around, and PE could be giving up the time quite quickly. Players are going to have to drop back and support that home base, as that means that BOD will start getting a momentum shift in this battle. And if they can deal with that unit of phalanx and that men at arms unit, you can potentially get yourself into that home. But with a half capture already, this game is looking like this could well and truly be almost over quite quickly on after a first set of attack.
If BOD wouldn't be so quick on killing so many heroes there on PHE, they maybe could have just delayed them following up on the end cap and therefore outpositioned them. So it would be, in my opinion, being very good there, being the losing fight there. And now we see the end cap getting rushed from PHE to get a foothold again on the end cap there. Therefore, BOD trying to get as many unit models as possible out of this fight there, because this will be a losing fight sooner or later. Therefore, they're just retreating there and trying to catch up with the rest of the team.
Yeah, let's bring up that unit trade here as well. And we'll get to see exactly what units we've got trade wise with PEE in the defense. Have that higher set of units tier 5 and tier 4, but also an abundance of tier 2 when it comes to if it does get that way. But it just shows you the even though it looked like it was BOD getting half capture with 7 minutes left on the clock in this position, they've still got a couple of good pushes with a good set of units, and it only takes one final good push from BOD to get that win inside. But PA managed to get the trades on the heroes, and that is what slowed BOD down on that home point capture because there was units coming to support it in defense. But now they've got the chance to set up for artillery. They've got half captured. They've got 6 minutes 47 to deal with. All PE's defenses are going to have to be shifted a little bit from that front gate all into these middle lanes between them and the home point. That mortar shot looks like it's going to be right on target as it does hit a couple of the Wu-Ways and the Roches and the Murmaloons that are below unit of phalanx as well behind it. And they're going to keep sending that straight into that because the mortar is in pinpoint position. Good shots from them coming out for BOD to make sure that they can control a lot of this battle from the distance.
Yeah, right now it's gonna be mortar combat at its best again, which we see all the time happening right now. Blue mortars being very efficient about shooting in an arc and therefore into the defensive setup and the kill boxes, and therefore being very commonly used in this CBL.
That unit of Arachi must be whittling down. That's a couple of mortar shots that just targeted one after the other. They're combining the shots and position them in the exact same spot to make sure they're dealing as much damage as physically possible. It's almost like having a treb when you have 4 or 5 mortar shots coming one after the other. And that is the devastating damage that it can lead to as the attackers with having that advantage in terms of artillery spam to use. PE on the defensive side only have 4 more pieces left. You do see one of the members of PE rotating on the back with a unit of cavalry. They're going to be met by a phalanx unit, so that's not going to work out for them. If he does end up sending it, which he decides, I'm going to back down, we're not going to go that way because that is just an inevitable loss of unit that you can't afford to be losing, considering they're losing so much already with this mortar spam that's been taking place here from BOD. And BOD now start to make that move, looking towards that supply point side, where I said if you've got that supply under control, BOD will have the opportunity. But the cavalry charge is met by a cavalry of their own. BOD winning that cavalry battle and now force their way towards that supply point. PE is going to have to start making rotations round. The Treb's going to come in for these units that are rotating from that right side. That is going to be devastating if they keep moving towards it. But thankfully, some of the PE players are not moving their units straight into the Treb zone, which is fine for them. But they've still got plenty of Trebs to use on the supply point. There's one coming in already. BOD looking strong, got themselves up that stairwell, got a good stronghold onto this point. But there's going to be 2 ways of attack for that PE defense, and they're going to try and see if they can counter at least some of that push if they can. 4 minutes left to do it though. It's a long time, but surely PE could potentially send a player over towards that home point for a little sneaky capture again, as you do see BOD's glaive in the background trying to deal with the archers. And I feel like PE have lost too many units and too many heroes at this point in time. This battle for the supply is all but over. even though they've got some players still alive. I feel like the trades are going pretty evenly in terms of lives, but unit wise, it's looking more like BOD in control.
It's looking really favored for BOD right now. They're doing a super good job here on getting this supply point and putting the pressure in there. The problem is going to be PHE respawning now with a few fresh set of units and therefore maybe winning this over time. But BOD really needs to look into maybe
A
dying here
phalanx
as
unit
a
needs to
hero.
watch in the back. Oh, a cavalry charge for counter. Sorry, I just had to go out and seen the cavalry
I,
come back in, and then all of a sudden the trade comes in. The treb's on point as well. It was called in early, expecting the players to come support that supply point. Strangely enough, BOD didn't send any players over to that home point where it could have been captured, but there comes the other cavalry charge down with Orochi, but the Orochi will inevitably be end up here. PE's respawn working out for them, and they've got the advantage in terms of lives and units for now, as eventually BOD is going to have to forcefully quickly get towards home point in some fine manner, because otherwise this game could be won on that defense, and PE looking good for it.
I think you need to also look into hero deaths because PHE lost the fights before there and therefore maybe died more often than the people from BOD, which I'm not, which I'm now showing that it's not right what I'm saying. So BOD did died more with the heroes and therefore are also struggling on lives there. If they now lose another fight in 2 minutes, which they have to pick ASAP for them to have like a winning fight there, which can end up winning them. So they need to go now and then also win this because every loss of life right now could result in them not being able to get back into it. One
Yeah,
minute and
exactly.
50 seconds left. Here we're going to see the last engagement of this round.
When the timer's in red, you have to force it, and the red team are doing just that. In attack, BOD now will be met by a PA full defensive, looking to finalize this defense with 1 minute 38. You don't have time to waste. They're still starting to set up mortars as much as possible. Have they got it in the time? Are the units going to be able to win these trades? It doesn't look good for the first set of units that goes in. Second set potentially going to try and go on, but PAE are just making sure that that wall is holding strong. They're pushing through. They're keeping their lives alive here as well. Every hero is still alive on that PAE side. BOD throwing numbers at it, but numbers are falling quicker than the opposition. The Treb does coming on towards that cavalry unit. Not a big loss in the grand scheme of things because the frontal is working out for PAE. They're managing to force BOD into that corner where they still can't get around, and no player is managing to sneak their way on towards home point, and therefore BOD look like they are down and out, down to 7 hero lives remaining, only 365 units left, and only 45 seconds left in this battle. PAE have held the final push that they need to, and that's exactly what will take them to winning map number 1, unless something really crazy happens here. I very much doubt it. BOD don't really have the numbers, they don't have the heroes, and they don't have the time.
It's nothing is going in their favor right now for this round, so BOD is going to losing this round. There should be no possibility for them to get now and hold onto endpoint. And therefore, this is the first round going already now here for PHE. AE, I start mispronouncing the even the letters. My fault.
That's quite all right. 2 seconds, 1 second. We are done. The defense holds strong here in Harbour City. It is going to be PAE taking round number 1. MVP goes up there with 5 hero kills, 127 unit kills, but just below 154 unit kills. Abu looking strong in terms of killing units. And there is another one of 127 units, a couple more over 100 as well. As you're going to see 107 across the board. But the hero killer was your scimitar class down at the bottom. There were 9 hero kills. Solid performance from them. I would pronounce their names, sadly. Like I said, don't understand
I
Chinese,
usually
Asian, or anything like that, I'm afraid.
usually you just name them. Can't read it, can't pronounce it. That's usually how I name them.
Can't read it, can't pronounce it. Aikomodo
Yeah.
gets the MVP for the attack inside of Bod. 91 unit kills, 5 hero kills. The team below it, player below it gets 5 as well with 135 unit kills. And that's a solid work put in, but not enough to go on and win map number 1. Head over to that post battle analysis is where we can see the breakdown as the map ensued. looking pretty even, to be fair, to start with the first couple of trades coming out across the battlefield. But yeah, at one point it did go quite well in favor of AEE on that defense for the final push, where you could see the massive jump in numbers, but that's when their numbers had whittled down quite considerably, and they'd lost so many heroes and didn't have control of their units, so the lower tier units were getting dealt with pretty quickly, and BOD were finally held out of the city. A good strong attack was not enough though, because he got halfway capped, and I felt like this was going to be a really quick cap, and it didn't end up that way, brother.
Yeah, it was like the flank was really good in the beginning, but then they messed up on the timing and the positioning often, in my opinion. Because if you're going for the left side and even for the supply, you can't be stuck there with too many heroes. In the end, sounds maybe a little bit bad, but you need to die at the perfect timing. Therefore, you're respawning on the other side of the map and therefore having more time to run to the end cup. And I think this was the major problem there for them not dying in time to get the rotation be done for the perfect timing to set up the rotational flank in the end.
Yeah,
They did it in the
exactly that.
beginning better with the right side going through main gate and therefore taking the fight on the small gate, but they ended up losing the fight too slow on the left side and therefore having the people still respawning while the defender had enough time to ripe or push all the attacking forces back to where they were before and therefore just making the ground of the right side supply.
Yeah, so when you get in and you get some ground, you want to keep pushing forward. You want to try and keep closing that gap as well. But their small gate push wasn't really that great. It took a little bit of time before they decided to go in after their big gate pushing, where it felt like they were going to come out and get a good pincher in. PE side were pretty good on that defensive side, considering. And even with that use of artillery and the mortar spam that they did use on the attack, it wasn't enough to go on and seal victory. But they're going to have to do what PE just did there in defense. If you're BOD, you want to make sure you make this a 1-1 series. You don't want to be 2-0 down going into the third map, the potential decider for PE if they do get the 2-0. And yeah, if you're in this, PE is going to be happy. That's a defense on a city that you tend to be very difficult to hold for the most part. There is so many ways in, so much quick movement. If you're there and you're switched on quickly enough with your heroes and your units, you managed to get home point without even sneaking too much losses, because you managed to get a distraction on that defensive side. But that's not what happened here. They put themselves in. Supply point push went on a little bit longer than it probably needed to, and therefore they got wiped out in the end with the respawning heroes of PE, who just managed to keep sending it back towards that supply and not losing too much.
But that's also like related what you said before with the mortar being not that effective is all related to the meta changes right now going on with a lot of green and blue units being picked, and therefore you have easy access to changing what you're using right now. So we saw people having 5 sets of units and therefore there is no problem in delaying the game as a defender for like investing some unit models just to catch some mortar shots. That's basically a common strategy right now where you use a lot of units just to delay the game by default, or as an attacker to go for early engages or like initially bad engages where you can come up with better rotations or even with a second engage on the same fight while the defender is still struggling to clear the first fight. Because like Rata and Pikemen right now need ages to kill. If you can see like Paladins trying to go in the matchup, they need like, I don't know, let me make up a like 45 seconds them just trying to step them down and they be like, oh, poison, poison, debuff, debuff. And therefore they need like ages to kill them. And then the attacker can already run back to the supply, pull up a new unit, and run into the same engagement while the enemy is already weakened. And therefore this is working very well for some teams if they utilize it good.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's a clever idea. I never really thought, but that was a light bulb moment as soon as you started mentioning it. Bringing
Yeah.
these lower tier units in that city, putting them around, using that to bait out mortar shots, using them to kind of bait out pushes, and then go back to the supply point while they're in the middle of a fight. Bring out your higher tier units when they've already damaged to higher tier units, and then just send your units in that are obviously of equal quality or better, and then just yeah. go and win it, which was quite a clever idea. And never really thought about it in terms of using it that way. But you don't see teams normally do it in defense that well. And PE just did exactly that. They did a good job of doing it, making sure that when they did have to put the push in, they were solid, they were ready, and they got it all dealt with. We should be going into map number two soon enough. Well, round number two, we'll say, because it's the same map. It's no change of map, but I mean, I like to say map two because technically it's still another map, but it's just the other way around. In the battle attack defense is switched. So it will be a different strategy for both teams and different set of units this time around as well. Surely you don't pick the same units as you did on that defense as you would be as the attackers, but sometimes you never know. Sometimes it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty much the attack and defensive side. Both set of units can work on both sides, but you won't see Falconettis, for example, on the attacking side very often. But we have seen it in the past where Falconettis up close and personal coming through. If you keep them supported and you have a unit pushing through, they could be devastating at close range.
I can go into a little bit of depth here. Normally, you can skill them on two sets because it's one unit where you can actually skill them top line or bottom line, and therefore going for far away Falcos or close combat Falcos, we call them. So if you skill,
Shotgunners, as I like
yeah,
to call them.
shotgun Falcos, perfectly fine. And therefore you skill them differently. And maybe this is also the case for some teams utilizing the same ways, but this is like back knowledge. I don't know if it's still the case right now because I don't use that many Falcos or don't even see that many Falcos right now in the game and therefore don't pay that much attention to them. But in CBL for sure, because based on bans and different strategies, they are often used for just denial of the towers, and therefore they are just skilled. I think it's top line for tower shooting down because it's far away, and therefore they are just used for this. But there could be a possibility where people utilize the shotgun Falcos and therefore go for close combat Falcos, and then maybe we see like a difference. And the different unit setups for attack and defense, you often see teams using the same setups for attack and defense just based on the fact it's easier to organize in the end,
Mhm.
because for sure there's like it's often better to change the setup, like it's basic knowledge for everybody, because depending on the situation some units are better or not. But then in the end also need to pay attention to how team captains are managing their players, and then also how they have time for this to manage this in a short time and maybe reacting on the enemy setup, because all the intel they gathered through the first round and then also their scrims before and stuff like this can lead to a lot of things going around in your head, and therefore you need to come up with a good counter strategy. And this could also end up you in a situation where you're overthinking things, and then maybe you just go into using the same units again. Therefore, your players are more used to what they deal with or play with instead of reacting to something.
Yeah, definitely. It's better to use units that you're accustomed with. Obviously, like you know how they work, how they'll play out, and how to maneuver them around. There is teams where you've seen them trying to react, know fine well what the other side have brought, but you just don't know what they're going to bring the next time around. That might have just been a one-off strategy for the attack set sort of things, and then they change it completely for that defense. So you can't just kind of adapt quickly on the fly if you don't know what you're using with the units. You can't just go and tell one of your players or one of your members, right, you're going to use a Falconetti gunners, even though you've not been accustomed to them, but we can't afford any of our other players to use them. So you bring them out and you try and use them. It could then just affect how the game eventually goes out. I wouldn't like to be playing a unit of specialist units that I don't know well of, especially things like Senjis, etc. I'm pretty sure if I was controlling them, they'd be dead instantaneously. Whereas some of these players know fine well that's what they like to deal with. They like to have their set units. They like to have set specialist units that they could control and manage to use them to their advantage. Pretty much, you don't want to be picking units that you just don't know have the knowledge of how to use them properly. It will never work out in your favor if you have that against a couple of players. That might be the error that you pull out. You just switch something up that nobody can control, and you've got a few players on your team that are just not adapting to the play style and how it has to change around for the next match. But yeah, that is definitely a very important point going ahead because yeah, don't ever give me a unit that I don't know how to use. If I was to be that, if you're the shot caller, you always make sure that your team are satisfied. They're all happy with the units that they've got. Obviously, you have to work it to a certain extent where you've got enough of each of the units. You've got the shield balls. You've got the right amount of phalanx. You don't want to over congest it with the same unit across the board either, because too much of the same unit won't be working well if the other team has counters to it. So yeah, it's a difficult strategy. It's a difficult thing, and obviously there's multiple sets of units that you can bring to battle, which does change how you decide to set your unit setup up. Because you've got to think about more than just one push, for sure.
Yeah, like I said before, it's like not like everybody can think of the situation. Adapting fast is the optimal situation where team captain and the team can follow up on what they're seeing and what intel they gathered through the first round. And even just for attacking or switching, attacking, defending, like for obvious reason, adapting is always better. But then in the end, it's also, like I said, related to if it's even possible for you to adapt in the situation.
Yeah, definitely. It's very very difficult to adapt to situations sometimes, but we've seen it work out sometimes for some people. We've seen it in the EU side where one team brought pretty much Spartans, and that was not banned. And strangely enough, you're probably like thinking, well, the only way to kind of adapt and change it is have to bring them the same unit to counter it and hope that you win the trades. And that's what did end up happening. And yeah, they managed to hold off their own because they could have been losing quite considerably if they didn't adapt at that point in time. And that is definitely what could happen here as well. Obviously, Spartans are banned, though, so like that's a good thing for both teams. Like they're not having to deal with that because we know how strong they can be, and I'm pretty sure these boys would be happy to not see them in the battlefield. And that's why the ban was there. But yeah, phalanx units have been good, great. They've been used pretty much in every single match we've seen. There's no way to not bring them because they deal so well with cavalry, and cavalry is obviously a pick. There's Yanyadel has been picked quite a lot of the time. You've seen obviously the companion cavalry. You're going to see the dagger axe lancers used because they just deal so much damage on that flank, and they're such a quick unit to get around. You can always catch people off guard if you're quick and if you're clever with it and manage to catch units of phalanx as well when they're still in that move. It could be devastating for them. But yeah, there's always a counter to each unit for the most part. And that's the thing about this game. This is the beauty of the game as well, is just bringing the right unit at the right time and having it already in the battlefield to try and look for that weakness on the opposition side.
That's true. You always have like as at least like a soft counter to something. It always comes up to you how to utilize your certain units and stuff. Because in the end, if you go for dagger axes right now to counter Spartans, that could be done by the dagger axes, but then in the end, it's also depending on how they're going or how they're situated and like which corner they're standing in, or are they around the corner, and therefore your cavalry is not perfectly situated, and if they have the rage bar already up and therefore using the super good second ability of the Spartans. So it's always up to the match up in the end. It's not only the paper scissor rock system, it's also them being utilized and therefore used perfectly. In my opinion, like the best unit right now in this current state is like phalanx, because they're very strong, doing really good, but then there's also like a high skill gap in between players, because there are a lot of buttons and a lot of timings you have to press, and even timing things you have to do for them to work perfectly, and therefore there's like a big skill gap in between players just by using it. And I love units that are like a little bit more complicated, where you need mm, to think around them and how to utilize them, and then if they also have like a big skill gap in between where you can really get professional with them, I really love and enjoy playing these units.
Yeah, that being said, that's the kind of units alongside the hero. It doesn't come down to that unit specifically. It is about how well that player can deal with the damage that they're obviously doing themselves. They're trying to stay away out of harm's way, also trying to control their unit and their hero. Looking in the battles, if they get countered, there's an opportunity that will stop them and affect them using their units, etc. So how you manage it is all about the play. But let's go into the match here again. Harbour City countdown timer is quite quick here, so we're not going to really get to see quickly on what's going on. But unit-wise, it seems like it's pretty similar. Going for both sides. We are seeing a different tier 5 cavalry on the side of BOD. Or was that just a Hussars image? Has it been changed slightly? Is that just me being me and thinking it's somebody different?
I didn't
'Cause,
pay enough attention there.
yeah,
Had
that's
to
fine.
change the had to change the Apac code. So you, for all the players in Apac right now watching, you can also watch in the Twitch chat or in the overlay. Sometimes you can see the gift code and therefore enter it and get some stuff for free.
Woo! Look at that. Get
Woo!
yourself some freebies for watching some Conqueror's Blade. Remember, grand final here, Apac PAE. I've got the advantage here after their first attack on Harbour City. They're now on that attacking side, got an early treb being done, and you see the use of that artillery for the defensive side of BOD. Strategy wise, we're going to expect the first set of siege towers to go down. Strangely enough, PEE let BOD last time round get the second set of siege towers up and give them the advantage, but somehow managed to hold inside the city. So I mean, I can't write it off. I was thinking if the first set of siege towers are dealt with, that's fine, but you have to deal with the second set for the most part. And they didn't. I felt that was going to be the detriment to their side, but no, it wasn't. And they still managed to hold that defense. AE, I'm going to hope that they can try and do the same because they want to try and get at least the siege towers up on that second attempt if it's possible. But BOD have only put down two pieces of artillery so far, so they're not looking to deal with it yet too much in terms of siege towers. It's just all about using the built in artillery already on the walls.
We see one guy running all the way on the left gate there, out, little bit of scouting, maybe just teasing some people into running into small gate. There's already dual blade hunting him down, throwing his eyes on him. Nope, but deciding it's not gonna be worth it in the end, and therefore just retreating. Some people on the gate, placing the units there, and it
That
looks
first
like
siege tower, they might actually reach the walls on a first push. That is not what you want to see. That's not the sight you want to see if you're the defensive side of BOD. PE's got the advantage. They're getting a second siege tower potentially to that wall. Is it going to reach that trev? Thankfully, it just misses their own trev. That could have taken out, but the wall, the siege will eventually fall. But this right side one looks like that is going to be dealt with. And that will be reaching the wall. PE going to get the first set of siege towers up on the wall, at least on one side. And that's going to be a difficult task now for BOD to deal with that defense.
yeah, for sure. Having the first set of towers hitting the wall there is not really what you are aiming there. As the defender already invested some artillery on their side to deny this, but then ending them up now facing it. But it doesn't look like PAE is using this turret to push up, because in the end it's also like very far away from A point, and therefore you need to face the enemy on the stairs sitting there. So they are waiting for sure for the left side now to reach the wall before they even initiate the first push. And therefore, it's gonna be the same as before. The second row of towers hitting or being utilized to push for A. Not even talking about hitting the walls, but about when you use this, which set
Yeah.
of towers you use to go for
Well,
A.
exactly that. Like, but just getting that first set up though, even if it's not the one they're going to use, that then distracts BOD, and they go right. We have to drop back anyway, so you're going to get the next one up for free, pretty much easy enough. And as you can see, at BOD are going on that retreat. They're going into that city, making sure they're defending between that supply point side. Both sides they want to be making sure they hold on to. But PE with the first push up already early, it's going to give some really good time in this map here. It's going to go well over 12 minutes, I'm pretty sure, by the end of this timer capping, maybe potentially for the home push, which is a lot of time and no units invested, not much artillery invested, good few amount of treads, but there's a chase down trying to look for that class of the pike, but what's that? It's not a pike, but yeah, it is the pike, isn't it? Yeah, it is the pike class. They're just trying to get chased out, but he manages to survive it. And he gets outside, and now you're going to see that spam of mortars about to be set up here for the attack. Looking once again to see plenty of mortar spam over into the defensive side of BOD. They're already rotating units over towards the other supply point side, left map side, and that means that PAE are opening towards that supply point here on this right map right side. So they're going to be able to capture that and maybe, hopefully, try and bait some players over. Ikomo is going to be the first player to come along. He's got his men at arms. He's going to be able to bait off one of the members of the glaive there, but Treb's coming in as the units are rotating, not in any direction to deal any damage, though, sadly enough, because it's a little bit of a slow moving unit. That Imperial Shield take a little bit longer to maneuver. And PE looking to come down this, well, and down the wall, down the side, and they've got ballistas at the very bottom, looking to target some heroes. Even a set of a culverin at the very bottom there is a very interesting choice as well. Maybe they've spotted a mortar for the opportunity to take the mortars out here as well. And BOD are starting to spam mortars right there, right up close as well. So that is a very clever culverin position, but Can he deal with these mortars? He does. There you go. Shots come out. Mortars dealt with. BOD lost a good amount of artillery already without even having to do very much.
But then also the defenders are now really committing to setting up some mortars and therefore also directly shoot down the arty being placed on bottom there. But now the high ground Anakin is taking in full effect, and therefore the arty on top is hitting way easier on everything that is placed down on the bottom. And therefore, this is going to be mortar combat at its finest again, where we just witness big fireballs flying from one side to the other and just being, that's a lot of damage all the time.
Yep. Well, you can see it, right? On the BOD, right? They've only got three more pieces of artillery left to use, right? On the map, they've only got two pieces down. So, really, in the grand scheme of things, that is quite a good play for PE. They've got a massive swing and advantage of artillery. Obviously, still have them trebs, and there's a unit there that might be dealt with. That Solidar class isn't moving out of the way. The treb's going to come over the top of the building. It will deal some damage, and eventually the Iron Reapers start to move as well, and Solidars that were there. But yeah, now they're having to move, and they're going to come towards PE, strangely enough, into more range of mortar shots, which is probably not the ideal position to be in if you're BOD. And they don't look like the team that haven't lost a map. Lost a game. Sorry, should we say they've lost maps? They've not lost series, but they've not. They're not looking too good for it at the moment in time. Limited to the artillery, but at least delaying time for as long as possible. We still got 10 minutes on the clock for PE. They've got plenty of time to waste, but don't want to waste too much. That's for sure.
Like I said before, look at the unit counts. You're facing 1,500 units you need to grind through in 10 minutes, and that's not gonna happen through mortar fire. So if a defender is getting this position here and baiting the attacker into just mortar firing for over 5 minutes, that's a good thing for you in the end, because all the units you took are maybe just an investment of time because you're the defending side, and therefore this is like a good thing for you. They're now pushing them back onto the walls again, and therefore getting them back to using the mortars again. And if the attacker feels too confident into, oh, I'm making damage here, I'm making progress, you're not. No, you're not. You're wasting your time because in the end, you're sitting up there, maybe killing hundreds or 200 units in 1 minute, but this is not making the cut in the end
Yeah,
because
exactly that.
it's
Sorry.
ending you
Keep
up
going.
in like a really bad situation for an attacker because they're
Yeah.
sitting right now there and they're not even destroying 100 units in 1 minute, and therefore this is not going to happen anywhere.
No, that is true. And BOD, strangely enough, if you were to see this strategy being pulled out over on any other region that we tend to be casting over, it doesn't ever work out for them. But over here in Asia Pacific, they're slowing down. They're managing to bait the time as much as possible. With 8 minutes left and 45 seconds, BOD at this point had already captured a couple of that zone, but not enough, obviously, to go on and win it. But with PE, with that time and no capture, it seems like it's more defensive favored here over in Asia Pacific, which is strange considering the map layout and the opportunities that you have as the attackers going into this map. But BOD's got their positions quite nicely. They're still trying to deal with mortar spam constantly here from up top. But now you're going to see players from PE coming in through the gate. They're pushing down that stairwell, now trying to make that first encounter happen because you know they've got 8 minutes. They've got at least two full pushes involvement in this. And if they win the trade here on the first push, there's a chance that they can push forward with momentum. Cavalry charge, though, is going to go and disappear because he's realized there's a phalanx unit to the side. Going to try and get in around the back. That phalanx are still moving, but it will manage to brace in time and push it through. But BOD winning the trade in units and looking to push PAE back once again. Hero kills are pretty even as well, so nobody losing too many heroes too quickly, which overall will work out here for that defense as BOD will manage to deal with the majority of the units. Only one more phalanx unit to deal with, and that will be it done. Orochi in the back as well. There's a few of them left remaining. But the heroes now starting to whittle down. 11 versus 11. The cavalry charge here coming in through the outside from the gates, which is an interesting strategy. And you're going to see a massive supply point. It's heroes versus heroes, and a cavalry charge coming to help deal with that as well. Though that might swing things in their favor of PE as they do get that supply point hold. Can they pull units out, or is that going to be avoided here as the heroes will constantly start getting onto that point to make sure that they can't deal with and they won't get units out quickly because that would be the change of the battle swing. he's going to go straight towards that home. The pike player is going to be there, and the battle still commencing through that small gateway. BOD is holding on for dear life inside the gates, but that unit now will eventually be whittled down. The phalanx unit is going to get cavalry charge in the back as well, and now there's the momentum that PE need. They've got all red, purple, red units coming into the battle, and you can see the difference now. BOD going to be pushed back towards home and in towards that supply point side.
I think they're gonna set up like here in the alleyway, like we usually see right here. It's the last alleyway before end cap alleyway. There, I don't know if alleyway is even the best word to use here, but
Oh yeah,
the word I'm using for it for sure. So therefore, we're gonna see the classic setup from the defending side here again, facing 11 mortars for the attackers right now. And if they set up the mortars again, they're gonna waste a lot of time again because, like we said before, 6 minute, 1,000 units left to grind through. That's a lot of units you need to grind through, and they're getting into setting up the mortars again. Therefore, the defending side just needs to constantly rotate their units in and out for them to catch mortars, or even not, because if they don't go for PHE needs to go for the push here, which they are doing already, engaging this. So we see the fight already happening. Orochi Samurai being the backbone of the whole defenders push right there. There's just the front push coming, some hussars charging in, but not
onto the
looking really good.
wall. Oh no, that's the way you want your hussars. Why did they not go around the flank? Instead, they decided to go straight into the wall, and you don't want to be meeting walls as the hussars. But there's the unit of cavalry with the glaive going around the back towards the other supply point. The fight here is looking in favour of BOD as they managed to push it through with the Sorachi Samurai, and now can't the archers in the back and the Senji Grenadiers do enough damage? BOD send their glaive in to deal with the specialized units, but BOD winning the battle for now 4 or 5 minutes just on the clock there, and now BOD in full ascendancy. They've got
BOD
higher tier units remaining as well.
BOD is gonna have a big problem right now because a lot of heroes from them are still alive with no supply point to pull up new units, and PHA now can go in this same engagement with a fresh set of units and therefore just need to keep the pressure up, which they are a little bit of stucking inside because there's a lot of phalanx still being left. Them already fighting on the end cap there, BOD members already respawning, therefore the momentum is already a little bit lost, but we're gonna see a fight happening for the end cap and not on the alleyway before it happening because
Yeah.
BOD needs to set up there and not.
Yeah, they're not going to be quick enough to get units to set up around that corner. It's definitely going to be a home point defense. PE's managed to make their way through. They've dealt with that final unit of phalanx, and surely you go now if you're PE. You're 4 minutes. You've got the advantage. You could have got around that corner, but all of a sudden, BOD, the constant respawn is so quickly they're getting themselves in, and they might actually get the chance to set up here because PE's giving them the time. 3 minutes 50 on the clock. You should be in a better position if you're PAE. The way that they were playing that, it looked like they had just a constant chance to go pushing through, but they're a little bit lackadaisical. It feels like it's slow, and they've slowed themselves down, waiting on too many units to set up and get themselves going forward. Bod have managed to meet them, and now with that unit of Rat and Pike going in, is that the Rat and Pike? That is the Rat and Pike, isn't it? There we go. The Rat and Pike, the Rat and Shield, sorry. Going to be the front line to start with to slow them down so that BOD can set up just around the corner. They're going to only have one piece of artillery left to set up. But there comes a trap. Nice position there to deal with the units of that men at arms. Now, BOD pushing through that home point, knowing fine well the trebuchets coming in. The cavalry charge deals with the first set of units. It is just green shields, but that will deal with that as they manage to push through. Another set of units coming in. Nagy's sending the unit straight into phalanx though, and a couple of units of pike. Where is this going to go? Is it going to work in BOD's favor? Doesn't look too great for them, but I feel like the unit trades are working better out. They've got a higher set of units trade, and it looks like BOD have held well on that corner. The Treb will deal devastating damage though on towards their units, but PE are down to 2 minutes 37 seconds trying to make a push work and not managing to get the units to work it. Let's pull up the units though, because I feel like in terms of quality, they've not got anything left. And yeah, 118 units are 2-star units. The rest of them are pretty much well and truly one unit, maybe set model left of tier 5 and tier 3. That's not looking good for them. BOD, another defensive hold looking likely here on Harbour City. And that is not something I would have loved to have said straight into this game and into this match. This is not what we expect on Harbour City for the most part. Not
I
saying
think
that the
it's
meta's changed, but it's likely happening more often now.
I think it's related to the general change of meta, but the people not adapting in their head to it with the push things, because they're just used to setting up their arty, and therefore utilizing their arties to minimize like the unit pool of T5 units. But you can't use this strategy directly like you used to do it before for just this spam of unit models. And there we're going to see the last fight happening already. BOD fighting in the back there, going for the flank, getting catched off guard, but therefore the front lines is easy to catch up on it and just punishing the one guy standing there. Poor guy. BOD just using this little flank there, now struggling to find the right engagement angle, therefore now seeing just a lot of serfs being there, and the Rattan pikemen now utilizing their brute sheer power of delaying this fight, but this will not end them up winning this, and therefore BOD is going to win this side for sure, and therefore another defensive win on this Harbor City map, which I was not expecting, like we said before, but I think it's related to people not adapting in time on how to work with or against this big unit pools both teams are
Yeah.
utilizing. I think you need to aggressively place down your arty instead of going for the usually setup of like pre-placed arty placement and therefore just bombarding them down. I think maybe even blue cannons can be more effective to just set them up directly into the bush and therefore shooting in the incoming fight. And but
Mhm.
this could also end you up in like firing on your own units. So I don't know. It's just me
Give me some
assuming.
grape shots. Just to start grape shotting through people and try and pick off some heroes. I don't have to just do something different. Just change it up a little bit. Even ballistas, you can do well in dealing with units and targeting heroes as well in these cluster fights. Definitely for sure. If you can manage to set them up. If you're the Senji player, for example, in the back, why not sit there back with a grape shot or a ballista as well while you're controlling your units, and you can deal damage while the fight commences. But yeah, that being said, PE will not get the victory this time round, and it is going to be a 1-1 on the cards. But MVP for that attacking side there gets 80 unit kills and 2 hero kills. 106 for the player in second spot, though, for unit kills. And the hero killer is the one just below in third place with 5 hero kills. Guan finding 5 and 73 unit kills, and just below 122 unit kills. Our overall unit killer for the PE side is going 122 across the board. But over on that defensive side, who won again, that MVP gets 6 hero kills and 220 units. A valiant display in defense and a very, very well earned MVP spot, I feel like, in comparison to some MVPs we do see. But that looks like a solid amount of numbers across the board for him. 154 for 981. You've got 143 kills for Ikumo. You've got 136 for Lanzi, and even 100 for the player just below him as well, and 101 for later on. So a lot of S tiers coming out for BOD on that defense because it was solid. Obviously, in the end, had to deal with a lot of tier 2 units, which is where the kill numbers will probably come from. But your overall hero killer gets 8 on his side as well. The Pike player, what a fantastic performance there. And brother, I'll let you analyze a little bit here from that post battle analysis before we go into game number 3.
We can see like the engagement we saw before. It's like pretty even engagements on both sides for attacker and defender, maybe divided by some like let's say 30 or 40 units, which is not that much if you consider green and blue units being used on both sides a lot. Therefore, but also like the main setups were just utilizing the T5 units because we only saw like 3 engagements like we are used to, because in the end if you're using as an attacker a lot of units, you also need to go for a lot of engagements, therefore utilizing and using all your units. If you just go for 3 engagements, why don't you only just use 3 sets of good units, or like better performing units, let's say it like this. And therefore it's always going in the favor of the defender if we just seeing 3 engagements over the whole match. And therefore that was the case in the end, investing 3 lives on the side, heroes being killed 34 in total and 27 on the other side. Therefore 45, especially if you see 45, then the whole team is got killed 3 times, and therefore it's like them just taking too much time. I think people stop they need to stop taking the chill pill and get excited about and being brute forcing some fights and maybe going for more direct engagements there. And so that's my post analysis of what I saw here.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you. I feel like we're slowing down the meta with the unit changes and the amount of numbers you're bringing in. You only have 3 lives. Why not just bring 3 sets of units that are higher tier and higher quality? Because for the most part, you tend to end up dying with your unit the most part because you over aggressively push it potentially. But if you're doing it with more units and strategy, you have to be throwing them in and instantly resetting up for another set of units to come back support your team. I feel like that's the only way to use these lower tier units, either on the attacking side where you're using them to get up like siege towers early, or you're looking to get up ladders, for example, as a distraction method, maybe, while you set up ready for the push as well later on, and trying to use them that way. But that's the only way, really. And on defense, we've seen them used as a potential to just bait out mortars and artillery from the attackers. So, yeah, you have to use them that way. Otherwise, that's the only way they're going to be good in the end when you come back to that final push. If you still not completely got killed out in that battle, you bring in the unit, you're probably throwing your good units already at it with the last dying seconds. You're throwing a tier 2 unit or a tier 3 unit at the most up against tier 4 and tier 5 units. And we know who ends up winning that battle. No matter how much the meta shifted, how much they've had a buff in the past and recently, it doesn't really make sure that these tier 3 units or tier 2 units are going to outright win battles one on ones for sure. And if they're in group fights, it's even harder.
Yeah, like usually. But I want to come back to the guy killing 220 units. Just for some people to know what we are talking about, 220 units. There's a quest for getting units that's usually saying group up with up to 5 people to kill 240 units. And he's doing this by his own, not only in a normal game, but in an official final of the CBL. And therefore, killing 220 units, fucking legend.
Yeah, absolute legend. MVP status for sure. Wonder if he can continue to do that going into game number 3 as well. If he can keep that momentum going. It is looking good though. It's 1-for-1. We're going to a different map this time round. And I'm sure it's Regionopolis going into it. Like we said, it's one of these ones like Harbour City and Regionopolis haven't been major picks over on the EU NA side. I'm not sure about completely on NA side, but definitely for me on the EU side watching them, it's been few and far between. But we'll see what Regionopolis is going to bring up and what these different advances and changes are going to be going into that one. Are we going to have a quick break before this, or have we got time before this game goes straight into it? That's the question. I'm not
We
sure
can
how quickly it does.
go
We might
for
have
a
a
little break.
yeah, we'll have a
No
wee quick
problem.
break for map 3 before we get into Regionopolis, and we'll see what both these teams bring to the table. Okay, we're into game number 3. Regionopolis as it is, and it's equal against both sides winning their defense over on Harbour City. You can see the units all being changed out here from that previous maps, and it'll be an interesting strategy going forward. Orochi Samurai being a very big pick here. Siladars, Phalanx units, Men at Arms, Zenji Grenadiers, even some green units as expected. Like we said, I feel like we should just get rid of them, not use them, just bring tier 3, well, tier 4 maybe, and 5, but very few and far between for tier 3s. Maybe it's the archers that are working out with the Wuxin, and maybe the alchemists who do some good work, but you can see that sometimes on the defensive side there, BOD have brought a set of alchemists, not got them out yet, but we'll be bringing them to the battle at some point throughout. You're seeing a lot more grape shots here on that defense, which is good for hero killing, and hopefully that is what we're going to see on the battlefield, because that is few and far between in most of these battles. I like to see grape shots. I like to see kills from these artillery pieces, even ballistas, for example, getting a wee snipe shot from some good distance and taking a player out of the battle before anything even happens is always a fun part of the game. Gives yourself the advantage on that either attack or defense. So the extra number, the extra set of units that it will bring into that battle. Regionopolis, though, Lion's Roar have been picked for the attackers as well. So that's going to be interesting to see what that will change in these pushes. Brother, Regionopolis, when it goes and plays out for the most part, who do you favour, the attack or the defensive side?
I think BOD is now adapting to what we said before. They have almost most people of them only have 3 sets of units, and therefore just going for the three engagements, and therefore for higher tier units. And then also they're picking on grape shots, and therefore maybe they're paying a lot of attention on hero focus, or not the team hero focus, but focusing heroes in general. Let's say it like this, so nobody gets confused like me in my head. And therefore they're just trying to go for the engagements on C and trying to get all the heroes out and trying to go for this 3 engagements in general, and therefore using the grape shots to only go for heroes, and therefore the enemy can't even utilize them having more units in the end. So maybe we're gonna see them killing 3 units, or people dying from the attackers 3 times before they even can pull out their 5 unit setups, because right now they're doing it again with a lot of heroes having 4 to 5 units, and therefore they can't invest so many lives on every engagement. But
Oh, quick
BOD
hero
is
battle on that wall, though. Oh, one falls already. BOD, like you said, for attacking heroes, there's one hero out of the battle already. He drops dead eventually, and that will be first blood going away with BOD in that defense. It's 2 heroes jumped up, only one survives. Unfortunate for PAE, and like you says with that, yeah, that is definitely the case here for BOD. I hope, but then even then, if you look at the unit counts at the very top of the screen, it is pretty close still in terms of numbers and unit numbers. It's not far away, about a 95 difference. It's not majorly. It's like a couple set of units, maybe 3 sets of units that are different in grand scheme of things, but obviously probably lower tier for PAE for sure, because otherwise you're not going to have more units if you've got higher tier units involvement in this battle. But POD aren't defending A or B. They were just using the hero as a bait to slow it down a little bit, just to try and bait people out. And now they're going to go in towards defending C. Most parts, that is the tend to be the scheme going in for Regionopolis. You've seen the players taking it out from that supply point. That's where they're going to go for units and getting their setup in for that C defense. A will be captured for PAE, and surely quickly afterwards it will be B. Give them plenty of time, and now that opportunity to use all of their artillery and all of their trebs, which they're yet to use yet, because the bombard obviously takes care of that left wall on the screen that you can see there. He's still dealing shots with and trying to see what he can do if there's anything there, but they'll capture the supply point and they'll get set up with mortar shots for sure to try and target inside this little wall and fort here inside C.
yeah, like no shocker here, A and B being dropped, therefore the attacker having enough room to pull up. Even the supply is for free. We see some heroes already shooting down. I see somebody being on top there all the way, placing already a mortar down, which can lead them to fight against the mortar setup for C on the attacking side. So I like this placement already. It's a little bit sneaky in my opinion, because it's hidden for the trebuchet, and therefore a really good placement, good thought through. We have a poleaxe already being on top there, waiting for the enemy to place down mortars, and therefore maybe countering them with a culverin. I can also go a little bit more into deep thinking from my side. I saw a special unit being the cannons from the attacker side, so I expect them to go for breach push because that's the biggest hallway you can utilize the range of the cannons, and therefore I expect them to maybe fake for main or small gate on the right side and then going for breach in the end, because just based on the special units they picked.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good strategy. It works out sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. No, we'll wait and see what PE decide to bring to the table going forward. They've not put any units too far forward. Most of the units sitting away out of harm's way, so that any BOD mortars that are trying to counter any PE units are nowhere near any damaged, and that's a good idea for PE considering they're just going to use their mortar spam for potential opportunities inside units where BOD are clearly defending inside, but they've got most of their units inside that column spiral staircase position, just waiting to come out when needed. That way they're out of harm's way for any mortars as well. But there's just ones just sneaking out on the edge that are getting damaged, and that's going to be the phalanx units at the front of it. Is the supply point is still being utilized as well as a defensive strategy, and inside this small gateway where inside the keep you've got units, but BOD actually moving forward, looking a little bit more aggressive in the attack, actually bringing units out. Maybe expecting a push coming in there from PE, but realize it's just heroes, no units following it up, and therefore don't really need to send their units. But because they've done that, it means more shots are coming in and doing damage to their units.
I think that's exactly what PHE was planning on. They showcased like a little bit aggression from their side, so the defenders are just curious and maybe afraid of them pulling through with it and therefore pulling their units up. But that's exactly what they planned for, just pulling them into the mortar fire and therefore positioning them new. Right now they're doing the same thing again, just pulling up some units, pulling them into the mortar fire again, pulling down their units again, and then maybe going with a fresh setup because they also took some mortar shots right to the head. Right now we
Oh,
also
a
see the
push
flank
towards the
happening here.
supply.
That's
Oh,
kind of sneaky, but then he also sees companion cuff. It's not really the best trade he can think of right now. Also being a grape shot there, just waiting for his face to show up and make like a little screenshot. I always
smash.
I always think like if you're going speeding on the autobahn, then you get like the photo made by you, and that's like basically grape shots. If you're
I don't
going
even
through
think you
this,
can get speeding tickets on the autobahn. Eh? Well, that
you
was
can.
all out as fast as you wish.
No, depending on where you're driving in Germany, there's
Um,
some 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 parts you can drive as fast as you want, but most of them are basically uh, being like lowered on the amount you can drive or how fast you can go there. And there we're gonna see the
oh, the
companion calf
cavalry.
just going through the Rattan pikemen. But then in the end, it's just Rattan pikemen, and now they're investing a whole set of companion calf, which worked really out for them.
Oh, that
Also,
trap in the middle as well. Oh, God.
eating
And
down
there's a
on the
big push.
units. There we go for this big gate there, but that's ending them up in like a split situation. BOD already pushing out for it, taking the engagement. Full trap
No.
to the head that could be really devastating. You need to push up, defenders, or you're gonna get absolutely crushed by this one. Aye, this is not looking really good for the defenders right now. Trap being really on point. They're also hitting a little bit of the attackers, but the attackers looking like they're coming on top here. One guy already running through to block the supply on the left side, and therefore new units are coming from the attackers going for C. This is looking really good right now for PHE. They need to run now for the back end supply and take out some new units, and they need to stop focusing too much on the units here and maybe go for a little bit of C cap and also running down the Chenjis maybe, but they don't do it
Yeah.
yet.
The Senjis have been doing some good work. To be honest, in terms of trade wise, unit wise, it wasn't so bad for BOD, but they have lost control inside C and they're trying to get themselves back. They're losing that supply point close by. But it's Murmulons that they have to deal with, and that's not going to be too difficult of a scenario here because BOD have got players and heroes there. But now, Penguin comes in with a unit of cavalry and sends BOD backwards. Now we're going to see that C being captured. Are BOD going to full progress towards defending outside these gates, just outside of
Look,
C, or are they going
left
to look
side
to go back?
supply, there's one guy stuck, being there all alone, pulling new
Oh,
units, and now facing the whole enemy team.
oh.
Guys,
They
help
brought
me!
out ASAPs as well. I've not seen them in so long,
Yeah.
especially in CBL. That's for sure. But they will be dealt with very quickly for BOD down to now under 1,000 units on that defense. But to be honest, let's pull up the unit trades because it wasn't that big a deal, really, in the grand scheme of things. You take 296 units. Well, that's an extra 190 units away from PEE. It was a pretty even trade, but yeah, advantage still in favor of the attackers with higher tier quality units overall between tier 5 and tier 4 units going into this. But BOD haven't invested too much of their artillery. Now they're going to start doing that, and they're defending outside these small gateways and that breach here instead of defending at home side, which actually I feel like is the better position to be in. You're just going to have to deal with the muskets on top there. PE will just constantly spam down them bombs and make sure that they can deal with as many units as possible, as well as using their treb and their mortars as well on the outskirts. Can they manage to deal enough damage and force their way in? Which way they go, the small gate or the breach, or just use both of them at the same time to make sure you split BOD in their attack.
Yeah, we're gonna see mortar combat again happening here. It's gonna be a little bit of setup. I expect them to see baiting again. Usually you can sometimes see from the attacker on this position right now having some changes, but I don't know if they have any in their setup right now. And then you can see where they're aiming for just based on them stopping in a certain turret up on the walls, because if they're going for left side turret, they often go for small gate push, and if they go for second turret, they go for breach push. But right now, oh, already some heroes jumping up there, a fight on the walls happening, but they didn't take in account that already some units be up there and waiting for them to jump in there. Trap
Yeah, that was
setting
it.
in the
That's
back
a
line.
That was a good from them. They actually have the units hiding inside that tower. Just baits the players from BOD in, but they lost a couple, not too majorly, but yeah, that's
We
devastating.
already
Let's go and pull up the
see
unit
people
counts
running in
before
there.
this push comes in. Maybe not. There's we go. They're getting through that small gate, but they're circled. The mortar shots so spamming in from PAE, looking good as they start to make even further headway towards that supply point. That phalanx unit have managed to get through, but the cavalry is going to come in and try and charge over the top of them. Won't do too much damage, but overall it is pretty even. But unit trades going back and forward. BOD just looking to hold here and as long as possible and waste that time, but it's still 10 minutes to deal with. PE are not winning that fight through the small gate yet, but with the units coming back, the Lions Roar in the background as well, shooting through, are starting to make way forward, and BOD units will start to fall. There you go. There's Senji shots over the top. The healing archers doing some work as well. And there we go. PAE managed to break through that small gate. Units are Landsy surely are not going to invest them and waste them as well. But the cavalry, they're going to have to stop sending it if you're BOD. You've got too many units to deal with. You've got cavalry that might get pincered here by that phalanx unit that are just in the background. The BOD are going to have to drop back. Surely don't lose too many heroes here. You're down to 11. There's two more still outside that city gates. He manages to escape the glaive just. That ballista shot, though, it could have been taken out the scimitar, but the ballista will be taken out as well. And now you have 600 units versus 796, but well and truly in favor of the attackers.
Yep, for sure. It's going really good for the attackers right now. Their pushes seem to be really on point. They're getting their ground every time they go for something. Right now, they're already being very in favor of good units for the attackers there, or T5 or T4 units, not saying good units because also T2 units are currently very good, but it's depending on the impact they're having on where you take them. Right now, we're going to see some arty being placed in the back there again for sure, which we can witness right now happening. Two guys setting down some mortars there for the end cap. Going for a pretty unusual spot that I didn't saw before that much happening. And there the longsword is already going for the more common spot for me personally, which I saw more happening in the game. Not talking about CBL there, but we can see them hiding in the normal chamber of losing C. I call it the chamber of, what is it if you're ashamed, the chamber of shame.
Yeah.
Because if you're losing C on this map irregularly, it's really hard to defend endpoint, and therefore you need to pull back to the chamber of shame, and therefore trying to defend both spots from this little spot there, protected by so many rooftops being on top there. So maybe you can also call it the rooftop bar. I don't know. Just
Yeah, I mean
making
that's
up
their
names here.
that's his Grand Terrace. They're just making sure they're keeping it alive in Grand Terrace, and they have got certain specialized units out here, and they're now taking the hero battle to try and pick off some individuals. They did manage to find Penguin along the way. That's a hero battle that they won because there was 5 versus 1. But the way these mortar spams are coming back and forward, you're trying to see who's getting the best trade offs. One of the BOD members will fall as well to Guan. We don't know where he was, but did he sneak out that front gate, major gate? Got a problem though. You've got Senji's and you've got Sifonari on the defending side to deal with. If you can find them, that's a great spot. But the mortar shots are just going to miss that because of that wall and because of these rooftops. It's not in that position. They'll know that that unit is right there, but they just can't target it well enough. And there's plenty of cavalry out for BOD, but that's the problem. I feel like it's not going to be this thing that will win them the battle. The infantry push is definitely going to come in from PAE. They've got 6 minutes to do so. And they've got the Lion's Roar still there. They've got the Phalanx. The Murmalone's all ready to be that front wall as well. And most of it is infantry. There's Senjis as well down below, making sure they're not in harm's way from these mortar shots because they'll deal devastating damage to things like Senjis, the light armor units that don't really take too much liking to a mortar hitting the top of them, as well as they don't like flames. So, I mean, I don't like flames because set me alight. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to cry and burn. And that's what these units seem to do quite nicely. And that CC ability that it does with the flame as well makes sure your units are stuck in place and easily pickings for the opposition. But look at all these Joblins. They're sending units into that gate. Are they looking to try and go for a little pincer movement in towards the back of
I don't.
PAE? I
I
don't
think
think
they're
they are.
just now witnessing what mortars can do to their setup over time because they have a lot of time left and not that many units for the defenders, and that's why they're just searching for a point where they don't get hit for the mortars anymore. And that's why they pulled into main gate because it's more safe to stand there. Now we're gonna see the first setup for the rooftop bar. I'm gonna call it like this, and I'm gonna stick to it. And they
Yep.
just going to set up there some new arty being placed there, some
Cannons. I mean, I
cannons.
still find this really strange of a scenario to see cannons in these battles. Don't know what the difference is and why the Asia Pacific sides like to use them more so than anything else. Maybe it's the damage and the splash damage it does to units clustered up, maybe. But even still, I feel like it takes a lot of shots before that even deals enough damage as PE still start making their way. They send a trap in potentially for these units coming from that supply point side, and now they're going to be right in position for that cavalry to be damaged. PE got a good foothold near that terrace. Is it going to be the opportunity for them to push on through? Whose Flames are going to win these battles? Whose Senjis are in a perfect position? The charge comes in from BOD. Multiple cross charges coming in, but the Flames dealing some devastating damage on that BOD side. They look like they're actually holding their own for now. The men at arms will push into the other set of Senjis on that attacking side. PE will lose theirs. And now I feel like this defense have got control of it. The Senjis now holding their own in the background as well. But that was Orochi Samurai trying to deal with them and their flame units if they can pushing out of BOD and managing to force PE further and further back on this terrace. And if they can manage to take out these Lions Roar as well, that'll be a great trade in units. 360 to 395, and it's slowly whittling down. BOD have the hero advantage, but the trebuchet now to try and deal with that final set of units, but they'll be able to get out of harm's way as quickly as that treb comes in. Well, that being said, they didn't manage to move out of the way, but for the most part, that phalanx unit will take the brunt of the damage and surely not lose too much. 9 versus 8 units, pull them up because that is going to be pretty close. A very good trade working out for that defense. And the only issue they've got to deal with, though, is the higher quality tier 4 units difference. That could be what changes the game going into this final push because they've got 3 minutes to do it. They just need to set up quickly because they're 5 heroes down at the moment, but they've got a supply point near. They've got lots of units coming out, and it's all about how well BOD play this defensive channels now because they've got some good tier units in there, but a lot of lower tier quality units as well.
How many heroes are alive currently? Because I don't know if there's already some
BOD's
people
lost
being
one,
out forever. Yeah,
one,
both
one
sides.
each, two each. Oh, I
No,
think
no,
it's
the one guy can respawn on left side. Here is
oh
only
yeah.
oh
BOD's
two
lost
guys.
two,
Yeah, two for three
three.
guys for
Ooh,
BOD. Oh, already looking kinda hard for them. So 2 hero advantage at least for PHE there, and therefore they're gonna pull through with this right now with this attack. They just need to go for heroes,
Send in the
especially.
serfs. Go on, serfs. See what you can do, Zeus. Get your unit in there, get them sent in, and start getting these trades. The cavalry charge comes out. BOD have equaled the numbers. It's 11 versus, what, it was 12 versus 12 there, but now it's 11 versus 12 as BOD do lose Zeus. And that was his units of serfs that, well, you lose in that battle. The men at arms winning the battle here in the front for that PE side. It definitely looks like a sea of red. And I'm afraid to say it, that is going to be a win for the attacking side. BOD, unfortunately, don't have the numbers. They don't have the units left remaining. 305 versus 100. And it's going to be easier and easier now as they whittle down the lower tier units. BOD left with nobody left alive, and it's in yellow. Well, it's in red, sorry, but it's the countdown is on, and that capture point will be all but secured for PEE. A good attack, leaving it till the dying moments where they needed to, but the win will come out for them. A good solid attack, and Abu getting your MVP, 107 unit kills, slightly behind him though in that position point for getting MVP. He gets 167 unit kills with 3 hero kills, but our hero killer of the battle there goes to Yo-Yo, 9 hero kills, 123 unit kills, and a couple of heroes with 6 hero kills as well each. So that's the difference that we've seen where BOD lost a few extra members along that battle. It wasn't to work out for them. And go over towards BOD players though that see the difference in terms of units. 177 though for 981. That's a fantastic number in terms of unit kills. Not enough to hold off that defense. The musket picking up 3 hero kills, but BOD's Joe Blaze combined to get 10 hero kills between all 3 of them, Nagy and Lanzi, and the other gets 5 for himself. So yeah, a solid difference, but you can see the difference in numbers in the end for units and heroes going the way of PEE for that attack on Regionopolis.
Heading into the post-battle analysis here again, we see A and B getting dropped in the end for free, and therefore the first really big fight happening is going to be for C, which was like not heavily favored by one side or another, and therefore ending up the attacker to win C in the end. Therefore, the second fight was already behind C, but still like on the area on C. Them also ending up at the attacker winning some ground, making the effort and putting in the effort and getting the supply point behind C. Therefore, the last fights were focused around end cap, where firstly the red team lost a lot of units in the first engagement, therefore end cap, which pulled them back, but they pulled up new units, and with the higher unit account in the end, they managed to pull through and came out victorious in the end.
Yeah, exactly. A very, very good eventual defense. Um, wasn't going to be enough with the unit serfs and the lower tier units that were left remaining. Unfortunate for them, but POD were holding well for so long. Good sets of the defenses towards C and just in and around that. But unit numbers in the end in that one actually worked out for PE. Yes, they had higher tier units in the end and a little bit better quality for that final fight and the final push, which in the end makes sure that they go on to win the map. That being said, though, it is BOD's now attacking opportunity on Regionopolis. Are we going to grasslands after this next map? Bruder, do you see it on the cards?
Could be. We saw them both struggling a little bit right now here with the defense part. No, they won defenses on a map where we both thought they would win the attack, but they both struggled with the attack. Then now we see them winning the attack. Maybe it's shifting into favor again for BOD and therefore Grassland. And I'm just hoping and therefore assuming it's gonna be Grassland just based on it being a final and therefore having 5 rounds to showcase the final is always a good thing in my opinion, because last time we could see last match I was like really into was Why So Serious against like Hero Focus, the match being such a banger on Grassland where you could just see Hero Focus putting a lot of pressure by capturing endpoint in the like right at the start, or not in the start but in the middle of the match, and then Why So Serious just put a lot of force into it in their pushes and ended up winning them the grasslands. But like the match in general was such a banger, and I hope for this again to be happening, because grasslands is always like packed or full of full of things happening on the screen, full of engagement, full of fights, and therefore no towers getting pushed. And I really love like the supremacy of placement and players and teams in general, how to organize each other, and I just enjoy Grasslands. So I'm hoping for Grasslands.
Yeah, I'm always hoping for grasslands. There's always so much action. There's always so difficult to keep track of as well. With such a big map and open span room for movement for both teams, you just never know where the action is going to go, whether it's going to be in multiple places at the same time, which is always fine to see. And it's just slightly different strategies and who pulls that first blood early on. But we've still got BOD having to win their attack here now on Regionopolis after a good solid one from PAE. Are they going to adapt and change things around as they will look to do the exact same to make sure that they stay in this tournament for a little bit longer in this grand final? Because remember, it is $8,000 up for grabs here for them as well. I mean, that's a good chunk of money up for grabs for them. And yeah, that's a difference of what 3,000 from second spot. So you want to go for first place if you're any of these teams, plus that championship, just to be named the Asia Pacific champions of CBL. That is exactly what you want on the cards, and one of these two teams is going to find it. And it's P have got the upper hand now going into Regionopolis, a defensive win, and they win the series. They'll win that grand finals, and they'll take home that victory and be able to rub it in the faces of BOD and be like, "Yep, it doesn't matter if you went flawless all the way till here. We will take it away from you. It doesn't matter how many games in the end." And PE would be the team that would be as the underdogs going into this, really, considering their performances so far. But they managed to get better as the ban and pick stages came in, and all three zeros across the board in elimination rounds, looking good again here going into this one. But it is pretty tight between the two sides. There's just not really much difference from these battles that we've seen that could kind of favor one side over the other.
I was like, you can make right now assumptions on our CBL webpage and therefore betting for one team with points basically, which is like kind of fun. But I bet on BOD, so
You've got
guys,
one side that you need to make sure they win this and go to grasslands.
uh,
Then
I need my frame and my stuff. So guys, please, just for me, I don't want to push any buttons from the background to make the enemy lose, but maybe need to look into it. Just jokes. Um, yeah, in the end, for me, it's okay. Both teams winning, but right now, I would love to see BOD winning just based on this. But then also they need to win this round and the next round with it. Right now, there's a lot of pressure on them.
yeah,
So, uh, so hard to. But one thing I want to point out, by the way, is I saw a lot of chivalry cuff, which didn't saw before. That's the cavalry with the big lance, the French cav, where they have like a second unit as follow-up unit,
yeah,
and that could be based on the changes on the what's the called, not archers, but if you use the crossbowmen,
yeah.
and therefore
To
maybe
counter through it
this.
pretty much.
Yeah, so I was like, wow, this is new to me to saw them, and I really like seeing new units being used in CBL in general, because every time I'd be like, oh, how are they performing in like a big map right here, or the big matchup from both like professional teams, and then I'd be like, oh, nice, they're utilizing it not only once but twice, and therefore there must be a reason to it. And then my head is going around, oh, I need to investigate, I need to try, I need to look if I can make it work out, or is it just a situational thing for the stuff like that? Because in the match you said like, oh, the charge is not going through. That what basically this cuff, it's not made to just be really charge effective, but the crossbowmen in the back there dealing all the damage. You're
Yeah.
pressing basically a charge in a direction, and then they go like pew, 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 and they're being really effective.
Sorry, what do they do?
Yeah, you missed the sound, Minu. You pew, 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 pew,
Yeah, there
pew.
we go.
Yeah,
We
no
get a wee bit of
problem.
a pew pew, and that is exactly what we like to hear. A pew pews across the board. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like that Chevalier units, you don't really see them very often, like you said, and this is the first time I've seen them in the CBL as well. And that being said, as well, there was ASAPs used as well, which is another unit that you bring to the field that you don't see, and that was BOD bringing that as well. But sadly, we didn't get to see them in action because they were picked up pretty quickly from that supply point side. So don't know if they were going to be effective against any of the units in that battle, but it's good to see differences in units with the meta changes and the shifts of all these lower tier units. Bringing in something new to the battle definitely makes things interesting to see if it'll work out. If it's something that you pull out and all of a sudden it changes the swing and the momentum of the game. I didn't done it from there on the defense, but you never know. Maybe they will work at some point. They've got the attack to do, and they have to win it for your prediction over there. And I mean, I can still see them winning this attack and taking it to that grasslands for sure.
Yeah, pressing both thumbs right now, being like BOD, save save my frame. Yeah, but like I said before, like ASAP's being pulled there on the supply is also a funny thing for me. Him being like, "Hey guys, I now have my note for guys."
Oh,
When
oh,
hey, oh, for
damn.
damn, I think I missed something there. Didn't you say something from re-engage on C? No, I didn't. Ah, fuck. Classic.
Yeah, it's just yeah, unfortunate timing and unfortunate way to lose it. You lose out on the fact that yeah, you just pulled him out and there's just an abundance of units coming to that supply point and you're like, oh well, I guess that was a wasted investment and also and probably a wasted hero life as well, which you shouldn't have probably wanted to lose and you didn't want to lose because EOD in that final push did run out of heroes. They had a few less before the fight had even started, which gives you the momentum plus the tier units difference as well. Yeah, sending Surf Zeus was unfortunate. He had Surf left. That was it. That's all he had brought to the battle left remaining. And I mean, they're not going to do anything. The tier one units is even further back than just having a tier two, tier three unit, which is sometimes even then it's difficult to have that unit in that battle. Serfs, they're not built for fighting, and that is for sure. They're built for just wasted fodder, maybe cannon fodder, and maybe some pushing of the 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 pushing of the sieges, etc., and any of the battering rams, and just wasted away, but not for initiating battle. Which is
Don't
definitely not what they're key for.
underestimate the serves. They're serving a perfectly thing because sometimes your setup is just leaving you with like 40 points left, and then you just pick the serves based on them having the ability to heal your team. They can raise their sickles and be like, "Here you go, mates," and then they just give you some healing for your team. So don't underestimate it. It's 40 points well invested into healing your team. So I think they can be.
Sometimes you get lucky with them, right? Okay, I get that. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes your chef could kill a hero as well. I mean, last when you're always like, yes, look at that. You just got killed by my serfs, which is always fun and interesting. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, you're a bit like, oh, that's a bit embarrassing when you lose
That's good.
to a unit of serfs, and you're like, I could take these out. This is easy picking.
Maybe that should be a challenge for next CBL. Challenging the players to get like the best kill with woodcutters or stuff like this. Going with a woodcutter charge and
Yeah,
trying to kill a
woodcutter
hero.
charge can cut down wood. I mean, why not try and cut down some heroes along the way? I mean, that's the point. People asking in chat what the score is. I mean, if you just look at the screen chat, I mean, it's literally right in front of your face. Like, look at this here. See that? That is the score. Funny enough, it's 2-1, and it is PAE with the advantage going into our fourth map. BOD looking to try and win their attack, which hopefully shouldn't be too far away. And we will be getting more action on your screen, more Conqueror's Blade action for this grand final, which is starting to heat up quite nicely and looking like it could go towards that grasslands finale, the decider. Where is it going to go? Where's that opportunity going to come from? Are we going to get into this battle anytime soon? Or are these teams wasting some time to slow down that momentum? Because BOD, if they're like, oh, I've not got all my 15 members in for a reason, because you know what can happen? Put the momentum shift around. But that being said, it's like one of these things when you're waiting in a game loading and you complain about it, instantly loads up. There we go. Regionopolis will be loading up, and you're going to see the picks and units choices here for both sides. Attackers or BOD needing to win this one. And look, we're seeing another new unit on that fray. The Nadachi bringing out that assassin unit. Can't remember the name of it, to be fair, off the top of my head. It's been such a long time since I've seen them over on that left hand side for BOD. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting choice for sure. Can the assassin units do the damage? Can it do anything? The assassins, of course, it's that. Yeah, I remember it all as if it was yesterday. Of course, it is assassins. Also, Azaps as well being brought to it again. And yeah, that's going to be an interesting choice. More Chevaliers going in as well, but Silidars, Phalanx units as expected, more shields as expected as well. But on that defensive side, Phalanx They're going to bring some tier three, two units to start off with, as well as cannon fodder. Senji Grenadiers, multiple sets of them being brought out as well. And Orochi Samurai, which, as you said at the start of this, one of the biggest picks here for Asia Pacific.
Yeah, like Urashi Samurai being there, it's like also like a really fun unit to play in general, and therefore I think it's also a good performing unit right now. If you time them very well with their abilities, they are pretty good and in pretty good state. And if there's no Spartans right now, then they're even more effective. Then
Yeah.
we're gonna now head in the game for BOD. I think I saw it again with BOD having less people with 4 units in general, and therefore playing maybe more aggressively, or I hope at least to see them playing more aggressively here for it. But in the end, last time it was not going into their favor with the trade or the general mix of the unit. We can see people running to the tunnel there. They're not gonna push tunnel. They're just placing down their units there. But we already see the Hashashins. Hashashins being the old name for assassins because they used to take a certain substance and therefore be called like this. And therefore the name was evolving to assassins just based on Hashashins being the first name for the same kind of art of war, basically. But in the end, they're in the history they're called like this. Just a fun fact by
Mhm.
the side.
Yeah, that's fair. I like the little fun facts that are added, because it gives a wee bit of context to why the name and the team was picking that as well for it. But this time round for PE, they're not even looking to defend the walls for a wee bit of baiting at all. They're just going to drop back straight away. Only Musket on top of the wall now, and he's going to eventually leave from that wall and open up the opportunity for BOD to get towards that wall, get towards the points where they can see and scan from the top tower. And you see the glaive. They're just sitting up above, making sure that everything is fine and dandy for them to make their way in. The gate is breached. They'll manage to get in straight on towards that A zone. The Geoblade will possibly spot that musket and that glaive player loam in the streets still, but if you are a musket, you don't really want to go up against that Geoblade for sure, because you know fine well you're going to have team support coming in from BOD, and they're going to get free opportunity for A. They're going to get B quite quickly afterwards. That glaive is still hanging around though, and don't know, is he just stuck in place? Is he looking to move? Eyes maybe under the ground. I mean, that's something we've not seen for a while as well. You can't see him on the screen because
Oh, maybe interesting because people just park their units there and there maybe he's flanking them and people not paying attention and he can take a lot of unit kills there if people don't pay attention to their units.
yeah, nice little cheeky flank. But there you go. You're gonna have a hero battle from the short bow trying to deal some damage down below, but the supply point will be captured there. B will start to be captured as well. Now, still yet to use trebs, but got one mortar set up somewhere just below that fountain. And you're gonna see a ballista from the Joe Blade gonna be selected on this left side tower. That could be a nice wee thing to pick off some heroes. Let's see where he is aiming. His Lanzi is looking straight through that gateway, seeing a couple of heroes jumping around. And if that ballista shot just comes into that sharp boat, that sharp boat will be the first inevitable death. He decides to look for the musket, does hit the musket. Oh, he knocks him back. Doesn't deal the damage though to kill him. But will manage to get healed back up. And that sharp boat is going to start directing towards that ballista. Make sure that is out of the battle. In the meantime, they've still got units on the outside defending that little breachway outside because the glaive he's still sitting around looking for that possible flank. Don't think he is
Yeah,
anymore.
he's
Think he
getting catched, I
that
guess, because people are
who's
already running all the way in the bottom there in the mines of Moria searching for this one goblin there.
yeah,
And
he's
he's
coming. He's
now,
coming.
hey, I
Yeah.
think he already killed some units down there.
Oh, he's
That's
coming.
why they,
Oh, there you go. Longstar's going to come. He's baited 4 heroes over towards him, maybe even 5. But Nagi will eventually find Shang inside there, and that will be the Glaive's inevitable death. But might have worked out for them just to get a couple of unit deaths in their favor if you're on that defense. Because remember, you win this defense, you win this grand finals, and any extra deaths on your side, you've got the advantage in numbers, but most importantly, will not be tier units. It will definitely be lower tier units. So if they can whittle some down in surprise of the opposition, then that will be an extra helping going forward. With time being wasted, 13 minutes still left to play. I'm surprised from BOD's use of, well, limited use of shots on mortars at the moment. Only 5 pieces of artillery being used, and only one treb. And as I say, another mortar will be placed.
Yeah, mortar combat happening again, like we see all rounds happening. The classic
What's that
mortar
theme tune?
setup.
Go on, sing the theme tune for Mortal Kombat, because that's what came in my head as soon as you said that.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
there is
what I
other
did
games out
before.
there,
What I
but
usually do is going for mortar combat, and then
Mortal
the,
Kombat,
the defending
fight.
team be like, "Come over here, fight me like
Get
a
over
man,
here. I'll be the
get over
scimitar
here."
class. And it's like,
Yeah,
get over here.
but
Definitely.
scimitar
Like
for me is always like more like, oh, already some engagement getting pulled there. No, just pulling back now, so we can go.
bait and switch. That's the plan. Mortar Trebs coming in on towards these heroes, the musket players, light armor hero classes, which could die to Trebs quite quickly if they stay in one spot for too long. But yeah, they're thankfully out of the way. The breach is still yet to go down, but it's literally a shot away, and that breach will be down. But they're holding off on doing that just so that they can catch PAE off guard, surely, when they eventually take that down and go towards it, even if they can bait that and make players move around. So that being said, the breach will fall. It's almost as if they're listening to me, which surely they're not, because nobody's going to listen to me. Let's be honest. I never come up with any good strategies or plans, but they are going in through that breach, and now they are looking to try and get some foothold in the back, look towards that supply point where that could be beneficial for them if they can constantly rotate units in and out and stop PAE in terms of unit numbers, because their men at arms are getting a little bit aggressive through the wall. That hero looks to have baited them out, but that's because he was switching units out. So they just run away in retreat just into the way of BOD. And that's another benefit you have here. If you pick off heroes in this spot, their units will retreat back this way, and it'll be free pickings for BOD if that does happen. But muskets being thrown over the top, and you're going to see lots of grenade bombs being held down. That's the only issue you've got if you're BOD, because you've not got C, you can't go towards that home point at all, but you can now use artillery in the back. And guess what? The defense won't have any artillery facing that way unless they decide to start investing it now.
We're gonna see the mortar setup happening from the other side, because now they can utilize the little bit high ground to get a better angle into the units. Flames already being parked there in the side corner there, a little the pocket of shame. And but we now gonna see both sides having like a close supply. So if BOD is determined to attack you from this side, they also need one guy being ready to jump the supply and blocking the defenders from pulling new units up this little gateway there, or little stairway there. I'm gonna call it Harry Potter stairs there. Therefore, we have a little call out for it. Not calling
Yep.
it small gate and big gate all the time. Just come up with some names. This is how Counter-Strike is doing it. You just call them by something that is commonly known, and then you just go with it. So this is not now gonna be Harry Potter stairs for me.
That is fair. That is fair. Give it a known term is definitely a
Yeah.
good opportunity for call outs. But you said they obviously can block that spawn. Another thing as well, if you get into that position on C and you do manage to win a good push, you can block that stairwell off, and they've got to go the long way round, which is also an advantage for BOD, because you might leave heroes and units out there on that supply point that are pretty much useless fodder at that point in time. They can't do anything with it, and they'd have to then got their heroes around and try and rotate back into the city and take out another set of units somewhere else.
Yeah, the PHE is right now in a really difficult situation, basically because they are flanked from all sides. Some guys taking the time to get back the supply, which is good, because so they don't waste so much time just doing something. At least it's not that beneficial, because if people spawn there, they're gonna have a new fresh set of unit. So it's maybe just delaying this third approach, which might not be so important, but right now we're gonna see the first thing, or the first movement from people going to the C point here. Maybe just trying to get the defender into a position where they can be trapped very easily.
Trapped
Shenji's being
and mortared for sure. Definitely
yeah.
in that position now.
Going for the backside there, it's really difficult, because you can be trapped if you pull up for this, and the attackers just need to have an angle for them to place there, or you give them the room to go inside there, but this is also not beneficial for you. So I gonna expect some people to flank from the small right side into the upcoming kill box from the defenders, because the defenders gonna give them a little bit of room, because if they pull up for the small gate all the way on top, they're gonna eat this trebuchet like it's the hot balls from grandma, made with a lot of chili and therefore burning you alive.
Hmm.
And right now we just see heroes throwing down their abilities, and also there's little pew pew arrows from the short bow into the units. People already flanking, going for the 3-side engagement right there, already starting to catch some units there, getting some room, pulling up the enemy inside there, waiting a little bit on the main gate there, now pulling in. Already huge cuff charge. They are going all the way through, making a
Oh,
lot
look
of
at that.
room. That's looking so good for BOD right now. They're wiping the floor with the defender. Please block the supply. One guy's already blocking the supply. It's looking so awesome for them right now.
Yeah,
Really,
BOD
really, really good.
looking to wipe the floor with PAE's defense inside C. That's going to be pretty much all but surely won. Nobody else is going to send their way in there. They're just going to deal with the rest of the units, and that trade will be pretty decent for BOD. And they're going to get C. They're going to get that supply point close by as well, and they're going to force PAE back into the city walls inside home base now, where we've already seen PAE go on and to win. But looking at the unit trade wise, BOD have the advantage, 90 extra units in tier 5 and almost 200 difference in tier 4 units. And you can see that's the difference with what PAE have brought to the table. They brought 281 2-star units remaining. That is going to be the biggest deficit that will work in favor of BOD when they go towards pushing home. When do they do it, and how often and quickly do they make that push? You've got 10 minutes or just under 10 minutes now to get in position, set up, use some more mortars, use some more trebuchets potentially. But I'm surprised at this point with that push there that they didn't use more trebs on that home point, but in their base point. But with 9 going into home with 9 minutes, that's 1 per minute to try and bombard that home push. So that's a good opportunity going into it for BOD to tie this up.
For sure, it's looking really, really good for them right now. Like I said before, we're hoping for it, already sawing it from the beginning, maybe a little bit, because both teams seem to be up to a certain point where they're now really facing their arch enemy and being like, okay, he's the guy I need to focus on because he's as good as I am, and therefore making it really difficult to spot who is really having the advantage up here. And then now going to the end spot here, which is not really good for the defending side all the time, because most commonly you want to defend on C or behind C, which is not the case anymore for PAE here anymore. So they need to defend on end cap. But like I said before, it's really difficult to withstand the pressure from the attacking side here. They're setting up already their arty, going back to the little corner of shame there for losing C, or
Yep.
the
Yeah.
rooftop bar. Like I need to stick to one word. I can't decide yet. I can't
Yeah,
make
we
up my
can't
mind.
decide. There's more cannons being built here for BOD, though. Another opportunity to try and get his positions on this plateau. Does he finally build it? Yes, he does, but it's instantly dealt with it just being built. That is great power and great position in there. That must have been a culverin, I'm sure. There's nothing deals so much quick damage, and you're not really prepped and aiming down the sights of that cannon. Treb coming in though to try and deal with them artillery. And you're going to see a rotation here coming from BOD because PE players and units have pushed out that main gate, and their Cylinders are going to be lost for it. They're actually finishing them off, and there's a chance to wipe out the units going up in the back. What are PE thinking of? They're sending units into almost an inevitable death. That's just losing Orochi Samurai for nothing, men at arms and Cylinders. They're still going to have to try and defend from the front. Yes, the cavalry will be lost for BOD, but that is a good trade, and units surely working out for BOD. And once again, going to make it more difficult for PE in this defense. 7 minutes still left to go. More mortar shots being dealt with, dealing back and forward. And it was a very quick knowledge to rotate that quickly there if you're BOD.
I think this was like initially from the defender not that bad as you mentioned it, because they caught somebody off guard on the staircase for initiating them going out, and therefore ending them up in the situation where they're a little bit overcommitted, but they got the aggression out of the whole situation and pressuring the attacker into rotating over to the gate where they wouldn't take the approach. So ending them up maybe just investing some units into a major time win. And that's what
Yeah.
I would assume happened there right now there, and I don't judge it as really bad for the defending side right now. It was just showing some balls and being a little bit aggressive, therefore not giving the room. But right now they are looking into it again, which is not really good for them because the aggressing team is right now really more into looking into it and being positioned way more up in front and therefore can react way faster for them to go out of main gate, which they couldn't do at this point right now, or shouldn't do, let's say it like this, in my opinion. Always
Mm.
following up it with my opinion because that's crucial. Now we
Always
see
and
already
always.
them
That's what you're
moving
here
in.
for. Opinions matter. The trebuchets coming in. The Senji Grenadiers sending their grenades over the top there to deal some damage, but BOD getting headway on towards that home point. Going to be able to use all that artillery in the back. A wee bit of a capture on, but now the fight will commence. There's a chance for two full attacks here potentially for BOD if this one ends quite quickly. But the way that it's ending, it might actually end in them winning on this point because that is a sea of red wiping the floor with the units of PAE. Unit wise, it's looking so much better on that trade out. They are capturing the Senji Grenadiers, still sending them the grenades over the top. Surely you go and deal with them. There you go. They're not just samurai dealing with the cavalry, well, the ranged units that are all set up towards that gate. BOD looking solid in this defense. The phalanx unit's the only unit really here for PAE to deal with the damage and the Senjis, but the glaive of Ikomo tries to deal with them, will fall to his death, but capture zone is almost complete. The respawn in from PE is going to have to be quick. It's going to have to be fast, and they're going to have to try and stop that time because otherwise, this will be going to grasslands, and PE will be having to make sure that they've got a little bit of momentum. But with BOD winning this one, that could be the momentum shift needed. But all of a sudden, with the respawning coming in, PE have the upper hand. They've got the hero advantage lives as well. 9 versus 6. Make that 9 versus 7 as the other ones start to respawn in. But BOD are going to be pushed back towards C. And now PE might just have find the right comeback at the right time there. No too many deaths at one time, which made it quite well. And if they pick off this Nadachi as well, which the Jailblades are looking to do that, the Glaives coming to the support though. Look at them two spinning off of their horses, and instead, PE will win that fight and take out that one player. But one of the Jailblades does fall in the meantime. Let's pull up the unit stats. So let's see what units we've got here going into this final push because tier 4 units are in favor of BOD. It is pretty much that needs to be the difference maker for PAE. They need to win this push and somehow keep their units of tier 5 and tier 4 alive for this battle as long as possible to inevitably make sure that this PAE side can win the battle right here, right now, and stop that grasslands finale to see who your grand champions of Pacific APAC will be. And that's going to be down to what is going to be this final push that is starting to make their way forward of BOD with the Glaives up front. A lot more Glaives picked in the Asia Pacific region, which is good to see. And you see them spinning off their horses and dealing so much damage. And now they make that push. The Murmalone's leading the way. There's a unit of men at arms right behind it. Which way do they go? Right and turn left, straight towards the men at arms. The other units coming in from that main gateway. They're trying to get a foothold this way into trebable positions. 4 trebs still usable here for BOD. And who's going to win these trades of battles? The Murmalone's pushing right through towards that phalanx unit, and they are retreating as much as possible, trying to stay alive. But with the cavalry coming in from PAE, who is going to be able to win this trade? These units of phalanx are constantly retreating, but BOD winning the battles.
Yeah, BOD is looking so strong right now. They're winning the one flank and therefore can now rotate in the back of the defending forces, and therefore that's going to end them up with a winning side of BOD, and we can go to grasslands. Woohoo! Let's go.
Oh my God. A grasslands finale to decide our grand champions of Asia Pacific. It is definitely going to go that way. The heroes aren't going to get on that time. They're not going to be able to stop it. And BOD will tie up this series at 2-2. We've been here for over 2 hours now. It is going to go even longer as we go towards grasslands. And now it is anybody's game to win. This is the way we want grand finals to go, close and all the way to the end. I wonder how long this grasslands can go on for and how well they're going to do this. But Ikomo gets your MVP for that attack inside of BOD. 122 unit kills, 6 hero kills, massive, equaling their scimitar as well with 6 hero class kills. And then your second place, Nagi, the Blade, 164 unit kills, but 981 Nodachi, 4 hero kills, 203 unit kills across the board. Another player to get over that 200 mark, which is pretty good considering. And it actually looks like they well and truly devastated that PAE side. MVP goes up to 102 unit kills. Their hero killer of the day on this battle goes to the scimitar class with 4 hero kills. But overall, not that many hero kills going for the PE side, and that might have been a change of things as we go into that post battle analysis. Bruder, it was the way you wanted it to go. BOD taking that win.
Yeah. Hopes. Copium is up. Like Maximus from AMS would say, I would assume, him being the team captain of Copium. And therefore, me going back to the game here, having the defenders losing a lot more of units on C point, which is not that surprising because attackers won this fight in the first initiate. They go for the back supply there behind C, then put in front again, rotated a lot, going from 3 angles onto C, and therefore really dominating this fight on C. Second fight on end cap already happening. Was way more closer to both sides. It was like a close call there in unit trade, but actually the defenders come up on top there. But then the second engagement happening with the respawns of the attacking side really wiped the floor. They're going with a really smooth transition from going from main side down, rotating to the gate, and therefore rotating committing to the left side from the attacker's positioning, and then rotating out the defenders and going into their back, and therefore winning this fight. Really well executed, in my opinion, from BOD there, and therefore deserved win on this round, and now going into Grasslands. Grasslands.
Good to see a grasslands for a grand finals. I was muted there for a second. It's okay. We'll back. You're just seeing memes.
Yeah. Grasslands.
That's it.
How to make it with my fingers being like coming up from the floor, being like
celebrating on your seat, not on screen. We don't get to see the celebrations from Brother. You can see celebrations from me now and then, but I mean, most of the time I'm behind that screen when something happens, like, oh my god, oh, what's happening? And that's exactly how it happened there for BOD. People in chat probably thinking that might have been their last push, but they had a quick initial attack and then it sent it back in with the units, the advantage they had in terms of higher tier units in the end to go on and win it, moving to that left hand side, making sure they dealt with the unit of men at arms and came in from the gateway as well. So they had 2 sets of units in different places all at one time meeting together to make sure they go on and win it. The Murmulons definitely doing a great job to push back that phalanx unit and give them forward momentum, and that's exactly what BOD needed to tie things up, take it to the grasslands. And that being said, we're going to the grasslands. Before we go there, we'll take it to a short break. We'll be back for what will be our final map of the Asia Pacific region grand finals. PE versus BOD. Who takes it? We'll find out after the break.
Super.
It is the final battle of this grand finals here for Asia Pacific. Who's going to come out on top in grasslands? PE versus BOD. Who's got it? Going to be a lot more cavalry brought to the table. Camels, you're going to see halberdiers, you're going to see phalanx units, hussars, everything you can ask for it. Even some chevaliers added to the pot here from Nagy on that attacking side. Ladies and gentlemen, ballistas, grape shots, bring them all out, kill these heroes. Get this grassland secure. Who's going to have the advantage? Who do you got your back on for? You still got BOD, Bruder. Is that your case going forward? Momentum after that final fight on Regionopolis?
I hope so. BOD is taking this momentum from Regionopolis and just making this a 3-2 for them. But looking at the units already, they have a lot of green cavalry utilizing maybe the momentum in the end and therefore going for a lot of rotations because PHE is way more invested on infantry and therefore not that mobile. I hope BOD is aware of the situation and utilizing their momentum and their flanks way better than the opposing team. And I'm just we're gonna see a lot of flanks and a lot of rotations happening. So I hope our dear Crystal is ready to get lost inside of field battles, trying to focus on the right fight at the right moment, which is almost impossible for field battles
Oh,
because
for
it's
sure.
like 3 points and therefore really bad.
Otherwise, everybody looks like ants from up top. That mini map, though, keep an eye on it all the time because C and A on the outskirts are very important factors in this battle on grasslands. Getting towards B first, though, is going to be that side of PEE. They're also going to get potentially on to one capture zone and the second, but it's only going to be heroes. They're sending a cavalry unit straight away towards the side flank here. The longsword is taking his unit further into the mist, and that's going to be an opportunity for them to potentially try and open up that home point quickly when they get the two capture zones secured, as they are managing to get B, and C will be not that far behind it. B secured, A secured for BOD, and now PE is going to have the opening opportunity on home point. Have they got units back though? I'm sure BOD
Yeah.
have. They're already set, ready, waiting for it because that is the unfortunate circumstance sometimes we've seen where people aren't paying attention to that early on and they lose percentage straight away from the battle starting.
Yeah, so we see BOD already planning on losing on B because they already had a guy all the way back there and therefore not investing too much on units or fighting even for B. They just wanted to look how the people are rotating, already planning on defending on base point there. Now they're looking into setups of the arty right now because it's field battle, therefore you have very big rotation waves to get back with a new set of units. Therefore, we see a lot of ballistas being placed from both teams here, which are just trying to get some value out of the units they're aiming for. People hiding all their troops behind some corners and being a little bit cheeky, just looking with their heroes on the corners and being like, what's happening there? Can you ping maybe the arty for me? Yeah, no problem, buddy, I've got you. And then just using your middle mouse button for the new players maybe watching right now to ping RD or certain units just for your team. Don't overuse it every time if you just spam ping other units with your middle mouse button. I come to uh, get the air out of you.
Well, that being said, you're speaking about artillery. There's a lot of artillery being placed, but you know what? We don't even get to see it on this screen in this grasslands battle. We're not going to see how many people have invested artillery going into it. But with BOD on that disadvantage, technically they're in the losing side as things stand, with them not having control of 2 points. But you can see BOD going on as heroes individually. Nobody got units on that point as that defense. Just Orochi Samurai nearby, but the rest of the units hiding behind that cascade wall. And you're going to have units over on that supply point side here for PAE. BOD looking to try and get lost in the forest. There is going to be two cavalry units either side, though, and they could potentially be meeting in the open ground. What are we going to see on the left hand side of the screen? He goes and baits it and goes the other direction, now trying to hide inside the little dense forest that's there. But he's going to be rotating away back as well. And now the fight will go towards B. As you do see players convention in towards that B side. Units definitely looking to start an engagement, but one of the heroes of BOD does eventually fall. That's the first blood. And then these cavalry units do eventually get into battle. The hussars came in. They might be wiped out quickly unless the BOD Lanzi can get himself unit out of there. But the longsword is going to be caught up in the action. Too many heroes to deal with him. He'll surely be picked off. But with the longsword and that extra healing advantage, can he get the momentum, get that speed boost, and get out of the way? The answer to that is no. The pikeman picks him off. And now the battle is ensued. Here you go with PE bringing their units closer and closer towards B, making sure that PE are having to be forced off, but they've already got units nearby as well. It's not been really much major in terms of unit losses, but in terms of heroes back and forward, we've seen a couple from both sides falling.
Maybe we now see more of an engagement because already they're pulling all the infantry inside or next to B. We see Kefturan cavalry being the usually pain in the bum, and therefore using a lot of fire arrows there shooting at the enemies. They don't have really ammo problems at all, so therefore they can shoot forever. You just need to charge them in a certain direction. They will start shooting at the enemy, utilizing their mastery they got and the overall spreading fire.
Yep,
UD is just
exactly.
reacting to PAE here, rotating around the corner. Therefore, they're rotating a little bit more to the right side here. Looks a little bit like two people boxing, just
Marshall.
both people checking their footwork and therefore how they react on certain movement.
Feel
And
like though, if the opening does come in, right? POD, if they get onto that capture zone, they've got the advantage going towards home because there isn't really any. There is one unit back there on home for PE, but I'm not sure what. But there is Lanzi, him and his final units of hussars will be wiped out for now. Plenty of players from BOD rotating around towards C using these cavalry with the javelin calf to try and deal with the damage on that hero. The glaive player will be dismounted and finished off. But PE are pushing up towards B, making sure that they've got full security onto this and trying to take the fight to some of the units. The Imperial Shields, the first unit into battle, the cavalry charge coming from behind. And now, all of a sudden, this is the first proper battle we'll have on our hands here in Grasslands, and it looks like it's going the way of PAE. They've managed to wipe the units out of BOD, and now going to be losing that point now, or PE looking towards that supply point fight, trying to stop units coming back out in support. In the meantime, BOD are trying to capture B, but will eventually stop that count as well. And PE looking with the advantage in numbers at this moment in time, and still have two secure zones to their favor, and potentially taking BOD's supply point here if they can keep themselves alive long enough. But there we go. The PE are going to have to make sure that they don't invest too much or lose too many lives, hero lives here. That short sword is going to be getting stuck and he will be falling. But BOD have equaled up now with 12 versus 13 in lives. Let's pull up the unit count though to see the unit difference, because as it stands, PE have the advantage in tier 5 by over 160 units and a big deficit in terms of tier 4 units. So it's going to be interesting to see who has the better trade-offs in this next battle. Remember, PE have the advantage here now, still having two zones to their name. Doesn't matter what goes on. If it ends that way, they win the battle, and that's what they're looking to hold on to.
you need to pay attention that red and blue is swapped on the top here. So BOD is being red and
Oh my god.
PHE
I've
is
been
being
calling it
blue.
all wrong this whole time. Why are you
Yeah,
telling me now,
yeah.
brother?
I wasn't trying to stop you in your flow because people can make it up on their own and they maybe just paying attention on their own. So I'm just letting you go with the flow, and people need to just swap it in their head. But you need to
Okay,
pay attention.
BOD, well done. You're in command. Sorry. Take that right back. Damn.
No
See, us
problem.
casters getting thrown by information on the screen. I actually didn't even realize by looking at the names above the top of the players' heads. I should have noticed that myself personally. The amount of times I've called it out, still getting it wrong. But yeah,
I
P
was
have
just
won.
paying attention to what you're calling, and then one guy, 1 euro in the chat was pointing it out, and I was like, "Oh, damn, he's right, boy."
I know, and
And
then
therefore,
it's going to look bad because for the next 10 minutes of this delay, they're not going to realize that I'm that far behind you. So yeah, it's unfortunate. But there we go. BOD in full ascendancy at this point in time, the unit advantage, but now PE are starting to make their way up towards that C side. Can they get up there and can they get secure of another zone? Because they're going to need it. 3 minutes and 57 seconds left. There is only going to be another chance of one full battle commencing. One of the PE players does fall now, and now they're at that disadvantage, but they've managed to make their way on towards B. Do they have the units set up ready to hold off the commencing push coming in from BOD? They do. manage to find at least the Imperial shields? Can they whittle them down and get the flank off and make sure they control that point? But they're going to be losing A at the same time. This could be PEE slowly trying to take that away from them. And BE could actually have the momentum shifting. And BOD going to be able to get free cap before the two cap comes in for PEE. We'll wait and see because it is looking close. If they can get manage that stop on,
doesn't need to commit on B right now here because they're already getting A for free.
that's what I
So
mean, and that's what I mean. And can they hold off on it, and can they make sure that doesn't lose? And they are doing so. They're going to get free potentially captured. PE is going to try and force it. Two players there, only to deal with a short sword, and they've got plenty of units to come and deal with them. That capture zone will be stopped. And it looks like it is still in favor of BOD, holding the own with the two capture zones. But be back and forward again. This, as was said, it is very difficult to keep an eye on what is going on. PEE have got control of B and are going to take that lead for the first time in this map. Units are out there, and you're going to see hero difference in favor of PEE. It is 14 versus 9. Are they going to have that advantage in the final bit? There we go.
it's only 2 minutes left, so BOD really needs to go back there on the C point right now, take a fresh set of units and immediately go for B because A is not going to be possible in time, I guess, for them. So they need to go right here and right now for B. And they're having a lot of cavalry in their setup just by default from them what they picked in the beginning. Therefore, if we see a lot of anti-cavalry already being on the defender side or defending side right now, being PAE, therefore could be a really rough matchup for them in the end. But they have also a lot of infantry there. So this is going to be going down any second now because they need to make sure to go here as soon as possible. Right
Thing
now,
is here,
losing.
BOD
Oh,
push out. They've obviously got that number disadvantage with the unit being over on that home point because they can't afford to lose any percentage. But they have to win this fight, and they have to do it in the next minute and 26 seconds, and well, even earlier than that because the time it takes to capture. The charges coming back and forward, but it looks like the trades are going to be working out here for PAE. Are they going to be able to finish off the Arachi Samurai? That's going to be a full wipe. The cavalry charge dealing with everybody on that point. PoE are in the best position possible with the final minute encounter, and it looks like they are going to seal the deal right here right now. BOD numbers dwindling, heroes dying off, 13 versus 11 units in their favor of PAE. And can they make sure that they can secure this win? 47 seconds. It looks like it is all but done. Is there going to be any capture in the background? It doesn't look like any other zones are being looked at, and BOD are at the disadvantage now going into this. They've got more numbers in units, but they've got no hero lives left remaining. 6 heroes all trying to wait for that respawn in. 29 seconds though. There's not enough time really to capture a zone and wipe out a full set of units. They're going to try and force it over towards A. But look at all the players coming here for PAE. They're making sure that none of these zones will fall. PAE 16 seconds away from that grand final. Your Asia Pacific champions about to be crowned, ladies and gentlemen. Nagi and Ikomo trying to fight for their lives here, trying to keep it alive for BOD. It's not going to be enough. Nagi will fall. That will be the last hero to fall in battle. And your winners will be PEE, your grand champions on grasslands. 139 kills for your MVP award. Fantastic position. What a way to end it. And your Penguin, your Joe Blaine, finding 6 hero kills and 122 unit damage to secure his second spot and the team the victory. What a way to end it. What a way, a very confusing way to end it, considering the colours were swapped for us. But overall, we finally realised and we finally got it sorted out to realise that it wasn't BOD in control that whole time. It was actually PEE looking solid near the end. But BOD's MVP does go towards the top spot there, 118 unit kills. And then second and beside it here, he's going to get the 5 hero kills along with the glaive further down, but not enough in battle. Go to the post battle analysis. You'll see where these trades were done, Bruder. But what a way to do it. It's not your team, sadly. BOD don't come out on top. PEE do finish the grasslands and take control of that Asia Pacific champions. And what a way to end it as well. A phenomenal final take in the end to eventually secure that B zone near the end with very little time for BOD to fight back.
Yeah, PAE really took their time here, waiting patiently for BOD taking C and B, therefore giving them like the early advantage of both pints, but then really executing their push on B, and therefore just taking this one home, just making it like it's one push that really was making this whole game one-sided and therefore giving them the win because they were so strong with the fight there, and then their second setup they were just very favored on the anti-cavalry and therefore having the better setup, which BOD could just throw in their cavalry inside of the pikes there and ending them up with a losing fight. And then also on the last fight, the cav charges, the hussar charge from the one side going through all the units there. And then also you saw like another set of phalanx coming through, but then all again another charge from the side with cavalries being there charging them down, and then also the crossbowmen going pew 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 again, and therefore I'm
I
sad
love
here
it.
sitting in my chair knowing that my points are gonna be wasted, but it is how it is. BUD lost it, and we have a winner for APEC.
Yeah.
PAE being the APEC champion. You can crown yourself being like, God damn, mom, you can be proud of me being APEC champion 2025. Woohoo!
Yep, exactly. The CBL champions for APAC. What a way to win your region in fine fashion. Let's secure that victory. There's the victory drink on me. I don't know if you recall this
Yeah,
beautiful
I can.
trophy from previous times. I've not won it personally. That's just from my casting duties for CBL from last time out. But well done, grand champions for your region. APAC looking good in control. PAE, fantastic way to end it on a grasslands. A good battle in the end, and a very good series. A long one at that as well. Almost to the 3 hour mark. We've done 5 full games and we have seen 5 really, really close battles in the NPE. Your victory team to make sure that they are going to go on to try and play against the other side in the Asian region to play the Chinese side. See whoever that was going to be, we'll find out soon enough. They'll be playing up against them to see if they can win that over on the west side. I mean, that's where it was going to. Well, east side. Sorry, I messed up my directional zones. They're going to win the Eastern champions. They've got the momentum. They've got a good shift and change. They beat the team that went undefeated up until the finals, and now full swing. They're ready and they're raring to go. Well done on your victory. That's $8,000 to your name as a team, and all of them goodies you're gonna get along the way. Avatars and crowning attires and such like. I mean, gonna have to rock it for the remainder of the season when you do get that, and for forevermore, because that is you now crowned in the Hall of Fame as the 2025 CBL APAC champions. Very well played. And you know what, guys, everybody tuning in, we really do appreciate you all coming in support for these sides taking part. Remember, we still got more finals coming up today. It is Championship Sunday, which does mean we have EU region up next in T minus 1 hour and 45 minutes at this point in time, as the time will slowly whittle away. And then following it afterwards, we will have the AMS final. Bruder, any final words before we close out for the APAC stream?
No, for me it's a long day gonna happen today, but I really enjoyed watching this field battle here coming to an end. I didn't enjoy not seeing Beauty winning the fight in the end, but that's it. And I'm fully fine with the other team winning it. And now I'm just know which team will for sure go for the Eastern Championship. So both
That's it,
finalists we
Eastern.
just saw right now saw gonna go to the Eastern Championship, and therefore maybe we can also see them fighting our Western teams, which I'm really hyped about to see in the end. And that's something I just need to look out right now for, being like, okay, this is a potential enemy for our Western teams. I hope we're gonna see Dunkel there. Maybe we see Andruban with his team there. Maybe we see Maximus with his team there, and also maybe we see the nice one. No, mix up the
Which
name.
silent
Zodiac
one?
is the team. No, it's not Silent
No, I
One.
don't even know who's who
Too
in
Nice
any.
is his name. I
Too
almost
nice.
mixed. Too
Nice.
Nice is the team
Yeah.
leader of Zodiacs, and therefore I really hope to see some of them there and already being prepared to witness their legacy this CBL. So see
Yeah.
you
No.
guys in the evening. We're gonna see each other in almost or nearly 2 hours, and
Nearly,
therefore
nearly.
nearly, yeah.
Nearly
We-
2 hours,
uh,
almost counting down the time to EU, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure to tune in. Make sure your notifications are turned on because it is going to be big finale of EU next. Is Yeah Buddy versus Why So Serious in T minus 2 hours or less. I mean, you're going to be there, and I'm sure you're all going to be witnessing this grand final just as much as we've seen Apac here going down the distance. This next one can do the exact same and go to a grasslands finale as well. I'm sure these two teams are going to be figuring each other out as this tournament has went on. The VOD, the VODs that they've been looking at, and making sure they find weaknesses in their opposition. Who's going to come out on top for EU? We will find out in less than 2 hours' time. But thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again on that flip side. And congratulations again to PAE, your champions.